told me. Yeah, I can't remember.
Smith.
Smith. You live in town, right?
I'm actually a few miles out of town.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh,
Larson farm.
Mr. Go.
Larson's.
How's it going? Pretty good. You live
Are
in?
you Joseph?
Yep.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Are you Joseph?
Harold.
Here, okay.
Yeah, I'm engaged to Roger's son.
You're not too good at remembering faces or names.
Yeah, I'm sure you've seen quite a few who don't come in the door.
Well, they need a better memory than mine.
You mean the young one?
Yeah.
Is Roger's mom still living in? Oh, she passed away. When did that?
Last year sometime.
Oh, okay. The last time I was in that yard, she was still living.
Really?
She was a while.
Yeah. Okay.
Harold, are you an old Ime guy or a Brady guy or
I'm an old Bailey guy. I go back to Charles Bailey.
what, really?
Yep, good railroad guys. I actually worked with Chuck, and actually on the job they did, remember the M folks went over? I reviewed their finances. So it's, ours until they go to the normal. That was cool.
You must have some age on you. That was a while ago.
That was quite a while.
You're awful young.
Actually, that was one of the first things I did with Chuck Bailey. I mean, did you ever meet Chuck at all by any chance? Oh, he was a unique individual. I really liked him, but he was,
Dale Coons always did our audit at Cheyenne Valley Electric.
okay, yeah. But yeah, then actually, I think it was when Chuck died, I think they did they merged that together. When I
Should we round it up? Well, meeting in order, the Griggs County Commission, 1 o'clock, May 16th, 2014. Okay, you're having me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, you all have the agenda in front of you. Are there any corrections or additions to the agenda as presented?
I know when I mailed it out, I didn't have election meals on there, and I added it, written it by hand. So,
Election meals?
yeah.
Oh, where's it
It's
at?
behind.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We'll make sure everybody's here first.
Pardon?
Should make sure everybody's here first.
Should we do that? Call for roll. Sean?
Here.
Ron? Here. John?
Yeah.
Dale? Here. Troy's here. Thanks, John. Any additions to the minutes? Agenda, I mean? Gee whiz. Guess I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Been moved by Dale to approve the agenda as presented. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second the motion.
Seconded by Sean. Is there any discussion? there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, we are re-reviewing the April 17th Commissioner meeting minutes. It was suggested that a couple of changes would be made, and I reviewed them yesterday. And you can see the changes that I made in red. As far as the May 2nd meeting minutes, I guess, let's start with the 17th and go from there. Page 5 is where I was monkeying around.
So the part in red are the changes?
The part in red is what I've added. I didn't leave the cross, I should have put a line through the existing. All I really did, if you remember, it said he admitted that he had gone out to the auditor's office. Well, it wasn't really an admission, it was just a statement. And then where that, I ended that sentence and then started a new one just to break up those two sentences got sort of long. I mean, that was just a housekeeping thing, but I added those 4 words at the beginning of that sentence. So, I mean, you guys can change it as you see fit on that. That was just my interpretation of what needed to be changed. Anything further?
I'll make a motion we incorporate the changes as stated into the April 17th minutes.
And approve them. John made a motion that we approve them as amended. Them being the April 17th Commissioners minutes. Is there a second to the motion?
I'd move to second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We'll move on now to the May 2nd meeting minutes. Anybody see anything from the May 2nd minutes that you have a question on? Anybody see anything? If there are no changes, noted, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes from May 2nd, Commissioner meeting.
I'll move we dispense with the reading of May 2nd reading minutes and approve them as presented.
Sean moved that we dispense with the reading of the May 2nd meeting minutes and approve them as presented. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second the motion.
Seconded by Ron. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Next, on page 14, we have the bills. Does anybody have any questions, or would you like to see an invoice? We have them here.
I'd move we approve the auditor's warrants and the vouchers as presented.
Been moved that we approve the vouchers and the warrants as presented. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Ron. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. John?
Aye.
Dale?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carries. Okay, next. Bonnie? I see Harold's the next on the agenda. Were you gonna talk about these transfers too?
Yeah, that's,
Oh,
what,
okay.
that's the main reason I'm here to talk.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Good. I'm glad somebody knows
What's going on, all right.
yeah.
Actually, I'm gonna hand on something else just to, go through a couple things here, so. First, I'm gonna walk around this one. Gives me a chance to.
I guess I haven't talked to you for a while, Harold. Are you completed with the audit? Or
This is why I'm here to kind of talk to you guys, is to see if you guys want to do it or not. Because of the switchover, I just want to make sure the transfers made you want to stay with, and if you want to add any transfers or change. And at the transfers I handed out were what was made last year, and of course, the first one was just a standard you budget for human services one. The second one talked about how you're going to use some of the match for the EOC building. And the third was a FICA that would to balance out the FICA fund as the taxes were short. And the fourth one you did was the COPS grant, you distributed the money out to the general fund and regional correctional center. Now you can stay by those or you can't. I figured since you're a new commission you might want to officially act upon them that way or not. And then the other thing that's ultimately have to be decided is, we'll have to talk about the building and how the costs are allocated and where you want them at. So it's two different pieces you want to handle.
that building?
That building, yes.
Okay.
But what I did was I kind of showed you how the transfers would show up in the different funds. So the first couple of pages for that, then the transfers, and the last couple of pages kind of talk about the building funds, so. But again, transfers are always at the discretion of the commission, strictly the commission.
Didn't we approve all these prior?
Well, I just want to make sure that you're comfortable with it. That's what I'm saying is, because of the uniqueness of this nature, with the commission switching over, some of these are made pre-commission, pre-your days. So I didn't know if you want to stand by those, or if you wanted to rescind them and do something different or not.
I think we did do these.
No, we didn't. No, we didn't. No.
Previous commissioners.
Previous commissioners did this.
Oh, I said the same.
That's what I'm saying, is I don't know if you want to, as a commission, if you want to address that and talk about it, or just let it stand. Because it is official now, you can make it unofficial or different official. But I figured because of the environment up here, I wanted to bring it to your attention as a commission, you can decide you want to continue to do that. Or
Yeah, I just want to ask maybe a few questions, just on the $25,000 item. And I know that was for the shingle fund, and it was transferred out. And, you know, sometimes when I get an insurance check, well, sometimes they make it out to both me and the roofer, but it's kind of a contractual obligation to use that money to repair the building that was damaged. And sometimes it says that on the language, you know, this insurance money may only be used to repair the existing building. Was there any, I take it there were no restrictions on that insurance check, that it had to be used for its intended purpose of repairing the existing roof here, and that we could decide just to keep that money and use it for something else. I just want to make sure that's legal.
Well, yeah, let me ask a question. First of all, Harold, you're not here to state whether or not these transactions were done according to procedure or law. You're just stating these are the transactions that were done.
that's exactly right.
Okay. So how do we determine whether or not, or who makes a judgment of, I have the same question Ron does. Was that a appropriate use for the insurance reserve fund to be used on the EOC project? Was the emergency fund appropriate? Was the county loan fund appropriate for that use?
That's why I'm asking you if you're, you know, it's two-tone question. There's A, should it be, or can it be? And second of all, do we want to do that?
But see, I want to ask you if it's appropriate, because that.
You won't answer the question of can it be. You will just answer the question, because
If you want to talk about can it be, this becomes how much you want to parse words.
Okay.
I mean, can you find a path to make it work? Yes. Do you want to go through the work of finding that path? That's your call. I mean, and those kind of things where when you have multiple dollars coming in, and you go, okay, was this dollar spent for this, or was that dollar spent for that? And those kind of questions. You know, ultimately down the road, and because if this was the total amount for the whole project, it'd be a different issue too. But obviously the 329 is what you're required to match. That's not 329. So someplace down the line, you're going to have to come up with additional money. Do you want to do it in total, or do you want to start with this and go forward? But your question of can you do it? You know, again, from a legal perspective, I'm not going to go off from that perspective, but I know that I've seen interpretations of when money sits in a fund so long, and they go through that whole process, and there's back doors that can be used if you want to, but if you say, I'd rather see that money spent for something else, then it shouldn't be spent.
So there's also some monies that came out of the general fund, $297,000 that went towards the.
That's a whole big discussion we're gonna have after. But yeah, you're right.
But that first of all, there is no provision within the lease agreement or the contract that was signed with construction engineers that designates how much money the county is obligated for. The only designation is that the county has to provide 25% match to the grant.
Whatever grant funds are.
There is no provision tying that grant to this project.
As the only option, you're right. As an option it is. It's allowable as an option, but it is not required.
I disagree.
Meaning say you can't use it for that, or you don't have to?
There is no provision tying that grant money to this project. It is not included in the lease agreement or the indenture of trust. And
No, I know what you're saying, and.
let me read you this. This is from the lease agreement, and this is also an indenture of trust. And it says, this lease contains all agreements between the parties relative to the facility and the site, and there are no other representations, warranties, promises, agreements, or understandings, oral, written, or inferred between the parties relative to the facility and the site, unless reference is made to them in this lease. And within that lease, there is nothing stated about this grant. It's not tied to this thing whatsoever. It's only tied to this in the fact that it was awarded to the county, but it was never tied into this project. So how then do we get to the point that we justify our cost for this grant when it's not tied to the project?
I know what you're saying, and from the perspective of, was this tied in? No, it was not. And what you're saying, I understand and I agree with that. If you request a reimbursement from the state for that bill, now it is tied in, if you want to use that term. So if you say, the state of North Dakota is going to write me a check up to that $800,000.
Mm-hmm.
And you're asking for reimbursement for an expense that relates directly to that building, then it is tied in.
No, the grant is not tied to the.
No.
It's not tied to the construction of this building. That's the problem.
I know, but if they reimburse part of the cost of that building through the grant, that becomes part of the building cost then. Because they're reimbursing you for a check you wrote out to construction engineers or craft architect, right?
Except we didn't do that.
No, but if that check ever comes, if you get a check from the state of North Dakota,
Mm-hmm.
because the reimbursement request sitting there right now is based on getting reimbursed for those bills that were written out to construction engineers and craft architects.
Mm-hmm.
If that money comes in, then it becomes de facto tied. But you're right, at some point in time, until that point in time, you could say, I want my money spent over here.
No, that's not, I don't want the money spent. I want the money spent here. There's no avenue to do that. The funding sources for that thing do not include that grant. That grant was applied for and awarded when this was still a county project. This now is a private project, and the county has a lease agreement stating that, and that grant is not anywhere associated with that project. It is off on its own. It's off here in limbo, and it was never tied in. And that's the problem they're having with the state. That's the problem we'll have if by some way it was awarded, is that it's not contractually tied to this project.
Well, I talked to people at the state right now, and they're still reviewing it as
Mm-hmm.
a legitimate expense for reimbursement.
Correct.
And if you do get the reimbursement, then it is related to that bill. Because they're reimbursing you for an expense written out. Otherwise, you can't claim reimbursement.
Right,
unless you have
I
an
know
expense.
that. We're talking about the same problem. How do we square this in the books when this was not included in the 2014 budget?
No, okay.
There's
Right, and when you look at, and we'll expand into the last couple of pages of talking about because of that. When you look at that cost, some of the costs paid by the county right now, some paid by the building authority, and money went back and forth. And that discussion has to be held on how you want to deem those actions as happening. But by the same token is, within the bigger scheme what you're talking about, John, is you've got the bill for the architect, you've got the bill for the construction that have not had a specific approval as to a method of allocation.
right.
And, part of the pre-audit you talked about and those discussions, those two things there has to be an agreement, which should have been written up earlier, wasn't it? Between DES saying, you understand that these things can be charged this way and it will be reimbursed. And that should have been part of that, to tie it in, like you talked about. Now, can you tie it in now? I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not gonna say you can, but if you could, that would be the avenue you need to go down to say, DES, because they're gonna have to, when I talk to them, they're going off of the allocation of cost the architect submitted to them. They're saying, we're gonna look at that as a basis. So when the architect wrote and said 59% of our time was spent on the EOC center, part of this building. They're gonna look at that and say, okay, if they agree to that, and if you look at the whole construction cost, if they say it's a square footage that you can allocate towards what you're gonna call an EOC center,
Yep.
and we agree you can do that, and they say that, then all those things you talk about become open to that.
Right.
Until that happens, you're exactly where you're at. You're saying is in theory is I don't have this and I don't have that. And you're not in theory, you're in actuality, and you're right. How the parties get to that spot, that's when the lawyers can have fun.
Well, that was my question, because they don't want the North Dakota DES, of course, is the intermediary. They don't have the final say. They just distribute the
Right.
funds. They don't want to approve the funds until we have it in place, just as you described it. So it is a separate issue. And we can't have it a separate issue because it isn't a separate issue until they approve the funds.
Yeah, chicken and egg thing.
Yeah, right.
You're right. And the fact is, it should have been done earlier, and the question comes is, the only good news right now, if you want to use that, and I think it is good news, is they haven't rejected it based on that. They haven't said, you can't do it because it's too late now.
Right. But I mean, what I'm concerned about is it becomes a stalemate. They say, well, you got to do this.
Yeah.
So we can do this, and we say, well, we can't because it wasn't set up that way. You have to give us some money, and then we'll make it fit to our program. Where's the compromise there? How do you square it out?
Well, you're going to have to request that the method of reimbursement is this, and they agree to that.
Yeah, we're going to have to.
So you're writing a letter saying, we're requesting that you honor the architect split based on time spent.
Well, that isn't it.
And then you will have to agree, either indirect cost or a direct cost of the building will be based on square footage that is dedicated to the EOC center.
Yeah, but that's not the hang-up. The hang-up is the party that was awarded the grant has to first pay for the services that were provided. The grant was awarded to the county. The county doesn't have a way to pay for those services because of the way this was set up, because of the citizens said no, so we have a private entity to get around the county building this thing. But the grant is still made to the county. The county has to write the check in order to be reimbursed, but the county can't write the check because they've been specifically instructed not to.
Well, see now,
The only way that I see
I know.
that this can be resolved is if the North Dakota DES treats the bond proceeds as public.
That's right.
right.
That's the only way I can square it in my head.
Well-
Because we can't spend $1 million to get reimbursed because we don't have $1 million to spend.
Right. Now, the one question comes in to make it even funner for me, more fun,
Yeah.
is,
Painful would be a better word.
that's right, the private entity did never agree to build an entire building.
Yes, they
Yes, they
did.
did.
No, I mean, but, okay, fund the entire building.
Yes, they did.
Well, the actions taken didn't fund an entire building.
Well, that makes it worse. They signed the agreement saying we will construct and finance the site, the facility. The facility is everything located in Block 6.
Then they committed fraud.
Just
because
what-
they signed a contract that was larger than their funding source.
It's correct.
I'm not a lawyer now, but
Well,
I'm ducking that.
you just hit on it right there. They did agree to build the whole site, and they are also charging the lease payment for the whole site. But they only have $2.2 million allocated, and they signed contracts to the tune of $3.5 million. I can't step in now and say, yes, I'm going to take the responsibility as a county commissioner to perpetuate that fraud, which it was.
I'm gonna stay away from the word fraud myself. I'll let you.
I'm not.
I'm not gonna touch that one, but the number side you're talking about, I'm not gonna argue with at all. The numbers you
I mean, if you give me something and I tell you I'm going to give you $3.50 for it, and I only have $2.50 in my pocket, what is that?
No.
I mean, I don't. The time for tiptoeing around this issue is long since passed.
I'm not gonna tiptoe, but I'm not gonna, again, I'm gonna stay away from that. But if you talk about the accounting side, That's a part of the deal.
Well, we need it fixed on the accounting side some way, because the last thing we want is to have to let that grant go away. We want the grant here and we want it to be spent on this project. But we can't very well jeopardize the county and everybody else's integrity and financial security doing that. We can't perpetuate what's happened.
No, and I think, the point of, again, what you're talking about is all that stuff, but the DES needs to have some kind of an agreement. I don't know which side blinks first or talks first, but I think ultimately it's up to you guys to eventually talk to them, that goes through Jamie or whatever, would say.
We've tried. We've tried. They issued us 8 points that needed to be.
No, and I saw that one, and that's part where, part of the discussion on the commingling of funds, use that term that you talked about too, because of private and public money. Part of it comes also is how you want to show the accounting records to handle that, to pacify that point. But those become semantic points, but your big point you talk about is there has to be an agreement of some kind, either to say it's all one project and we're matching more than 25% because we're matching it, whatever, 70%.
Yeah.
So we're meeting their 25 without a problem. They go, good. But now their problem they say is we don't want a building that big for our grant. And that's where they're going to come back and say, you can't put the entire building in because we don't want the building. Only one is one building.
But the Bank of North Dakota wants the whole building. They want.
I know. And that's the irony behind the lease and the way the lease was structured, which is a standard lease agreement. It wasn't like they made a special exception for you guys. I mean, that's probably always building authorities get everything, even though they only do part of it. So if you put an addition on this building through a building authority, they would own the entire building by structure, by all those leases are always written on, which that's just their format. But your point comes in, well, they're leasing, we're paying a lease on the entire building when technically they didn't, if you want to say, pay for the entire building. And again, yeah, you're right.
We're paying a lease on a building that we're paying a lease on a building that we owned and leased to the people that lease it back to us.
Okay.
Is where it really stands.
Since the debt through the lease is a general obligation of the taxpayers, do you think that the DES would categorize that as public funds, or don't you know the answer to that question?
One of the problems we run into is, just like we talked about this with the emergency insurance money, we talk about whether we can, is there a path they could use? Yeah, they could if they really wanted to. And the question comes is, do they want to? And that's why the whole discussion goes back to them saying, as a commission, you have to go back to them and say, here's the deal. We need to get this house built of structure. And once we get this house of structure built, then everything flows through.
But they told us what they need. The problem is we can't comply with those 8 points. Then what's our course of action?
When they talk about that, and I didn't want to time down, so I didn't talk about those specific points when I was talking to them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if they say we want this to kill it, let it kill it.
Yeah.
If they say we need this to work, then you need to make it work. And both sides need to make it work. And they have to come back and say, this is a unique beast we're dealing with, and we understand that, so we can't use our standard cookie cutter approach to how we determine what you have here. We're going to expand the horizon of that. And if they choose not to, then you're right. I don't see how you're going to get past the points you raised.
They answer to two masters. They're in the middle.
Yeah.
They have our needs balanced on one side.
Mm-hmm.
They have Homeland Security and FEMA on the other side. They're in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want the responsibility of saying yes or no to this thing.
I know they don't.
They want someone, either us or the top end, to somehow make that decision for them. So, thusly, they're going to sit there and not make a decision. They're going to drag their feet until someone on either side of it makes a decision, I'm afraid.
Either you guys say we're out, and I go, and the odds of getting their cover at the top, very, very slight. This is supposed to be time you could contact your senators and representatives and say, you need to talk to FEMA about finding a way to get this thing through, or Homeland Security should. The things you're looking at right now is And that whole process, looking at it, is there is still a willingness, it seems like, to try to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
So from that perspective, yeah, they said we will try to get something, or try to find a way to get it. But who provides them the guidance? I mean, would it be you guys writing them a letter going, hey, you know what, try it this way. We got an idea for you. Or is it going to say, you need to talk to somebody in Washington or probably like Denver and say, hey, make this work. And they're going to say, that's a lot of work for me.
And if we bang on them with our local or our state and federal
Right, right.
representatives, they might just say, "The hell with you guys, we're not taking a chance on it. It's safer to say no." That's
Right now, the safe answer is no. Just like if I have to issue an audit report now on that grant, I question all the costs. Because there's nothing right now that says you're gonna slam dunk.
that's the problem.
And
So we're not in a position to apply pressure. We're just kind of floating there because where do you apply the pressure for fear that it causes an adverse reaction?
Well, yeah. I don't know which way it gets started, but you're right. I mean, at the point of, more than likely than not, they need to act on a solution rather than just a question. So I mean, that's why, send them a question, they're like, I'm not gonna touch it. But if you say, here's what we see as a solution, give us an up or down on it, you got a shot. But that's really basically what you're gonna have to do is say, we think we got a solution for you. And here's what we're gonna, just like what you talked about, Troy. You said, okay, if we can, we're gonna include this whole thing in, because this is a unique breed, we're gonna say, we're gonna request that you include the entire cost of $3.5 million in this to get $800,000. Will you work with us on it?
Well, that's not so much what I was getting at. Up to this point, the building authority has paid for the whole thing except for the 300,000 getting changed or whatever. So if you did split this project into 5941,
Yeah.
the bond funds have paid for a large portion of the 41% already. So if they treat that as public money, then we can make the argument that bond fund has constructed this structure to this point, and any reimbursement would be for, or in large part, for those funds, just to get the ball rolling. I wasn't gonna make the argument that that's an EOC center.
Okay, I see where you're going, okay. Well, actually, the 5941 is strictly for the architect. Actually, if you look at the construction costs.
Right, but I mean, I was just trying.
Right, no, but I'm gonna go, and that's what I'm talking about, that from that perspective, is okay. As of 2013, and this is one nice thing, because at least in 2014, you can make everything whole if you have to, because nothing's been officially out. However, if the buildings are officially borrowed the money or whatever, so you can argue that. 2013, you guys actually wrote a check out to construction engineers as a company. So that covers your costs.
25%.
No, but the 34% related to EOC in total. So you've never used building authority money at the end of 2013 yet for this project. You matched your own money because you wrote a check out of county funds.
Well, I thought we wrote that check out to the Bank of North Dakota
We did.
and not to the construction engineers, because it went into the.
No, you have to pay a bill to get it
It was written
reimbursed.
directly to construction engineers.
The 200 and.
The 413,399.50.
Now after that, they came out of Bank of North Dakota.
Well, where did it come from out of county funds then?
Well, see, that's part of the things that John brought up, and that's at 78 and the
Part of these transfers.
78 to 27 and 25. Technically, right now, it came out of the general fund, and then part of the money came from into the general fund from here.
And it's more than 297. It is, when you add it
It's
all
400.
together, it's 418,000, I
Right,
think.
so what I'm saying is technically, at the end of last year, you haven't, the issue you talk about is not an issue.
Okay.
It's an issue in 2014, because that's when the checks are starting to be written. And that's when you start talking about, then you start saying, well, here's what the deal was, we borrowed money from the building authority, they didn't pay it. It's not their money, we just borrowed from them, and we're gonna find money someone to pay for it. You can, so 2000, if you'd have never wrote a county check in 2013, he'd be in trouble like you talked about.
But we don't have-
2014, you're in trouble because.
But we don't have the money in order to do that. There's no money in order to write them a check.
Right. No, I'm not arguing that point.
Yeah, I mean.
But I'm just
again,
saying, in
it's a check.
2013, you actually write a check out for construction out of county money. And the question comes is, you want, and right now, I've got to move back into the general fund, and part of the commingling issue is, if you choose to start splitting that up to show them, because one thing grant people always love to have, they love their own fund. Show me my fund, my expenses, and I don't want to worry about the other stuff you guys as a county do. So they want to see EOC building, or EOC grant, or courthouse-EOC. They want to see like $1.3 million in expenses in there, and they want to see $1.3 million, 320,000 coming in, and 800,000 revenue. That's what they really want to see. Now to do that, you got to find a way to allocate those, split those bills up, and that's where all these things come into play. But we're back to the same thing you talked about, John. Until the structure itself is built, the door's closed.
Do you know the other problem with the reason that check was written in the first place was to try to square the whole issue of the
Other offices.
portion of this project.
Yeah, right.
59, 15, 57. So because those other offices couldn't be covered under this provision of getting around the will of the people, they had to write that check. But yet they wanted to use that check not only for the other offices, but also as the matching for the EOC. Well, we can't have it both ways. So
Technically, the other office issue went away because it never really, from the accounting perspective, because there was not.
From the accounting perspective, it went away from a legal issue. It's still looming out there large.
It's an issue to be dealt with.
Yes.
But as far as the fact that the check was written, did not tie it to those 4 offices. There was not a.
Well, then the past commissioners in the building authority is going to be very unhappy to hear that. Because if it's not tied to those other offices, that means they violated the provisions of 59, 15, 57.
Well, see, when you look at.
Only if it's challenged.
Well, there's nothing to this thing that isn't going to get challenged. The whole damn state knows about it.
Well, when you look at. Either you're going to have 3 funds or 2 funds, probably more like 3 funds, because you're going to have, the 10 mil issue is really where the 4 office came from.
Yep.
Okay. But the fact of the matter is, if the county would have wanted to, you can have a lease with the building authority out of the general fund. Has nothing to do with the 10 mil. To take care of the 290 issue you're talking about. Too late now.
You can't talk in what could have happened.
That's what I'm just saying is, but the fact of the matter is, right now, there are not 3 bills. There's 2 bills. Construction engineers submits 2 bills to you guys. No, they actually split it. No, the last bill you got.
It doesn't matter how they split
No.
it. The funding is not split. $2.9 million.
No, but what I'm still saying is, the 3 pieces, so the third piece was never identified. They've never built it and identified it as a separate structure.
Right.
But the EOC side, they have billed separately, if you want to use that term. Because when they send a bill, you get 3 bills. Overall, EOC, courthouse.
You have to back up. It doesn't matter how they bill it. That's for accounting purposes. It matters how the funding was structured, and the funding was structured under $2.9 million to construction engineers for both projects, and it was not split out. The contract does not specify that being broken out.
Yeah.
The total project was $3.5 million. It does not specify that being broke out.
Correct.
The bond was $2.2 million. It does not specify anything being broken out.
Correct. No,
So what you're talking about is after the fact to make somebody feel good for what they did. What we're talking about is what was done and what we have to deal with right now. We have to deal with the fact that none of this was set up and we don't have a way to fix it.
Well, that comes back to the structure. Can you build that structure? And that's when you have to talk to DES and say, is there an option where we can build this structure so that we can qualify? But you have to have a solution for them, because they're not going to come up with a solution for it.
And we don't have a solution. That's what we're asking. We've been over and over and over and over this. You can't unwind what's happened already.
No, and from what you're saying, is a good reason not to do it.
I don't wanna do it. I mean, I don't wanna not do it. We need the money or we're in a hell of a
Yeah.
problem here.
Right. And that's the part where, you know, if you look at talking to them about what the project entails in their mind at DES,
Mm-hmm.
you know, can we get past this, you know, because if you, like your point we talked about is if the county would have paid the bond, it'd never been an issue. Everybody agrees with that, right? Because everything we talk about stuff it was.
Yeah, but
The
if
bill, I know,
the
no,
county
but-
could have lent a bond,
Right, no, but I'm saying, but that's, and that was one of the first big hiccups that came through was the fact that there was a building authority, and I saw the letters you got from both entities talking about how you can't commingle funds and how you can't use building, and I understand it. And this comes to the point you're saying to them, okay, if you want to say that, that's fine. And can we still make this work? And you're going, there probably is an angle somebody's got to look for. And right now, everybody's saying, I don't want to look for it.
There's no, tell us, I mean, what is, we've asked the people that constructed this mess. They don't know how to fix it. The 5 people that put us in this mess, we asked them, what was your plan? And they go, I don't know. How are we supposed to figure this out? How are we supposed to fix this? What is the course of action to fix this thing? That's what accountants, that's what auditors, that's what lawyers are for. We're administrative here.
no, we're covered.
Well, to a certain extent, but so it's easy to say, well, you have to come up with a plan to fix it, except every plan that's been put forward doesn't work. Because we're faced with trying to deal with the facts that were set up when it started out, as it was a single private entity building this thing with one lump sum fee.
Do you have a suggestion how we proceed, Harold?
We'll hire you to do it. Just tell us how to do it.
Well, you know, and I wasn't sure which way you're gonna go, because that's the part where I understand all the turmoil and pain, pain's a good word for it. If the answer is find a way, then I think, you know, there comes a point of talking to people about doing it. And I think it's really gonna come down to is, if you go back and split the contracts up now, will they accept it? That's what it's gonna come down to.
Mm-hmm.
If they say, have construction engineers write 2 contracts, have craft architects write 2 contracts, and then you tie this contract to the EOC only, and you accept it. That's ultimately what they're gonna have to do. They're gonna have to have a contract, and then the fact of the matter is, when they talk about square footage, they were not opposed to it. Now, probably the square footage is if you change things and put non-EOC stuff in that part, I don't know if that's gonna work. In their mind saying, okay, now you don't have the same square footage anymore that you asked about.
How do you do that without bringing the bondholders of Bank North Dakota into this equation? And I don't know that the bondholders are very motivated to decrease their security position in their collateral. Or won't they be involved?
But you know, I mean, their collateral really is you guys. I mean, they don't want the bill.
Yep.
What they want to say is, if you guys as the county commission say, we're not gonna pay for it, they're more worried about that, because they're going, you know what this building's worth in Cooperstown?
Yeah.
No, not even what we got against it.
Not paying for it isn't an option, it's a general obligation lease.
Right.
You know, that shouldn't be the issue. I was asking you a question.
No, and I know, but I know what you're on there, Corey. Okay, I'll give you an example of that too, because I've seen where every time you kind of grant loan money, like CDLF loans, they always ask for collateral. Okay. Now, second thing they do is they subordinate to the main lender. So now all of a sudden now that loan becomes worthless. So it's no longer a CDLF loan, it's I hope you pay this loan because right now we got nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that's the way government works. Now the question comes is, and I've seen where.
That's only the case if the collateral is worth less than what the primary lenders loaned.
That's right.
But I've seen where, you know, like all these housing authorities when they came through and they built a bunch of those housing, well, most of them, they were built with basically zero margin for error. Zero. You had to have 100% occupancy, otherwise you couldn't make the loan pay.
Mm-hmm.
So these cities looked at it and a couple cities stepped up and said, we're gonna pay the bill because it's even though it's not in their name, actually it's in the name of, like, here be like City of Cooperstown Housing Authority, not the City of Cooperstown, so City of Cooperstown's not on the hook for it. But some cities said, we're gonna take a hit for you, and we'll pay off that loan for you, because you can't. Other cities said, it's not our problem, and they actually had restructured loans in a couple cities I worked with, where they brought in those guys like that we talked about, and they said, here's our choices, so. Would they be brought in? To some degree, it depends on whether or not their position truly changes. But and depending on how the final outlook looks, if EOC says, you can't put our building in this process, then they're coming in headstrong, because they got it. If EOC says, hey, you want to throw that building, part of the building in as part of that lease, you go, then bondholders, they're still whole.
They've already said we can't. It's a provision of the
That's what they
application. It's a provision of the application. But Harold, here's the problem with your scenario, that if we split this up, let's just say we split it up, and let's say the county share to use round numbers, the county share is $1.5 million for the EOC.
Mm-hmm.
And we have two separate contracts laying in front of us. How do we as the county sign an obligation for $1.5 million and we don't have authorization to do it and we don't have the money to do it? We cannot obligate the county to funds that we don't have. So we can't sign an agreement the same way that they couldn't sign the agreement to build this thing, because either we have tax funds backing that, or we have funds within the county to back that obligation, and we have neither.
Well, the third option you're not gonna like is technically the building authority could incur more debt and sign another lease, a general lease, not a building lease. If you wanna use general fund monies down the road, you could do that.
The building authority?
Building, keep in mind, the 10 mills, no, just hear me out, okay? The 10 mills you guys have has only specific purposes that you can use it for, right? Everybody agrees with that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's why the whole process became, and I'll use Barnes County North because I saw those guys were using, actually do their audit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The general fund, Barnes County North, makes that lease payment.
That's same as here.
Yeah, no, actually right now, technically you're using the 10 mil to pay the lease payment, right? Yeah. You could have a lease, general fund could pay that lease. General fund is up, if it had the months.
Yeah, well,
No, but I'm just saying is, but if you structured and you said, okay, if I want to borrow, just say you're gonna, we use the 1.3 since that's what, in theory, the EOC Center cost. So you agreed to have to come up with $329,000, right? As a match. In theory, the contract you signed with the EOC says, we'll give you money if you come up with $329,000, correct? The EOC grant.
Yeah, but that's not incorporated into this project.
No. What I'm just saying is, so in theory is, in the county's mind, they have to come up with $329,000. How they're gonna come up with it, that was part of his motion.
They did.
No, I'm just saying,
Yeah,
all right,
they did.
remember?
They did.
Okay. Now, if, for example, the building authority would take out a second loan for $329,000 and set up a lease agreement with the county, and you say, okay, then I can pay for that out of any fund I want. Or not any fund. I can pay for that out of the general fund, if I have one.
If you don't have to raise the mills.
Well, then that becomes a sub-issue. But by rights, all building authority leases are normally set up to say, you find the money, I don't care. Don't tell me the fund's gonna come out of, as a building authority, we don't care. All we wanna hear is, the check went to the Bank of North Dakota and we're good. How you expensed it, it's irrelevant to them. Now, no, if the Bank of North Dakota, because they're just having a lease, they don't care how the county's paying for it, that's not their problem, that's your problem to come up with that, as a governance board.
No. They absolutely care how the county is paying for it. That is the reason for the Century Code 591557. It specifically says 10 mills for 20 years, and that is assigned to the Bank of North Dakota through the indenture trust.
You guys-
That is their only reason that those bonds were able to be let, was because they were backed by the full faith and credit of Briggs County taxpayers.
Right.
And then that cannot be leveraged anywhere else, because who's going to leverage it? There's no money left.
No. I think we're talking different avenues. The fact is you did that, and you committed to it. As a board said, here's how we're gonna tell you we're gonna pay for it. And they
Yeah.
accepted it.
Yeah.
If you'd have said as a board, we're gonna find a way to pay for it, and they go, okay, you could have done that. And if they would have said that, we're fine with that. because the building leases that building authorities have, as a general rule, do not obligate a specific funding source. And that's the reason building authorities are used, because you don't have to have a specific commitment of money. Now, in their mind, they're saying it's good luck. As a board, you can't say good luck. And everything they did was, now the 329 we're talking about is the same issue you raised, is if you went to them and said, we want to borrow money, how can you pay it back? I don't know. Well, if I have to find a way, they'd be going, I don't want to borrow your money.
That's the position we're in.
No, what I'm saying is,
That's the position.
but some building authorities, and they work with the local banks, or they just go, you make it work. We're not going to tie you in.
The difference, Harold, is the building authorities you're talking about, as in Grand Forks or in the Civic Center when they did that, the building authority built that thing.
Right.
It didn't have a cap on the money that was available to them. It was the full faith and credit of Grand Forks County that was obligated to pay the bills of the building authority. This is a different animal. This is, because of the Century Codes 57, 15, 59, this thing had a cap. It was specifically for the purpose and for a specific amount, because they set it up that way so it didn't get to the point where it's an animal roaming free and buying anything it wants. So you can only sell the bonds to the extent that the money's there to repay it. And the money to repay it is a specified amount. So the building authority, if they went out and said, okay, we want to borrow another or $1.3 million, the bond, you would never sell a bond, because the bondholders would say, no, we can't be assured we're getting our money. And the trustee, the Bank of North Dakota, would say, absolutely not. We are not putting our name on this as a Class A or AA or whatever bond. So the scenario you're talking about doesn't work in this situation.
Not just in this situation, you're right.
So it doesn't. So I don't want to have what ifs. I want to have, here's how you fix it, because we're all done with what ifs. That's all behind us. We can't get money coming our way with a what if. If you would have done this and you would have done this, you would have done this.
Right. No, I agree.
Where do we fix this from here? And so far, every scenario has been up and down and back and forth, and we can't even get past the fact that they won't even tell us whether or not the payment has been accepted or denied. We're sitting out there in limbo.
Right, and when I was talking to them, their answer was, we're still looking at it. Oh, they did.
I know.
And it wasn't like, and the good news is they're still looking at it. They didn't say, we decided that this meets no criteria and the heavy lifting is done.
Yeah.
They didn't say it. So they're still trying to find a way to make it work. So from that perspective, at least you got two parties still wanting to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as that continues, it's going to be unorthodox. And there'll be probably a special chapter written for Griggs County and the whole system about how things are done. And there'll be a Griggs County rule probably be used.
I hope it's right in the Century Code when they rescind 57, 15, 59.
Yeah, but
I hope they call that the Griggs County rule, when that is no longer available to government to pull crap like this.
well, and from that perspective, what you talked about is should have gone through it. Everything should have been done first. And back to your what ifs, and I'm not going to sit there and beat that horse to death. It doesn't do me good. But if you're going to look at it and say, okay, the objective is still to get the grant, right?
Number one objective is to get the grant funds here.
And see, sometimes and again, I know media doesn't always get it right. Sometimes it seemed like it was implied that you're like, we don't want to mess with it.
No, what would be the purpose of us not wanting to have those grant funds
That's why
here?
every time I read it, I'm just going, this makes no sense. Now, I've been misquoted many times too, so.
The one reason that there's a little bit of a cloud that hangs over the grant is this building. Because one of the covenants in the grant is that we don't tear this building down and we don't.
Oh, really?
And we don't demolish it through neglect. So there is kind of another 800-pound gorilla in the room.
So if you find this avenue after going way over here and coming back, they're gonna throw that one at you next.
They already did.
I mean, but as far as like, So congratulations here.
But
Bravo
now-
over here.
And oh, by the way, you better.
You still
budget-
haven't talked.
you better budget
Now you got
to take
two
care of that
buildings.
old building.
So just theoretically, the grant comes through and we get the we get the $1 million, and we spent the $1 million over 20 years maintaining this one because we got the grant.
And we can't tear it down because we don't have enough money to do that either.
Well, we'd have to repay the grant if we tore it down without permission.
And it's in
I mean, just if we
perpetuity.
didn't
So
take the grant.
if we take the,
Perpetuity,
We still might not be able to.
if we take the grant money and we tear this down 20 years later, the grant money's gotta be paid back.
But I think there's time limit on it.
No, it's in perpetuity, and it can't be demolished by neglect. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. We need to somehow square the money that's been in 2013 without putting ourselves in danger of doing what I view as incorrect. I don't want to step in here and continue with what happened before. I don't want my name associated with that. And so what is the correct procedure for these funds? What's the correct procedure for that $297,000? What's the correct procedure overall for the 400 and whatever some $1,000? Did it get to the intended places correctly, or is there problems with it?
Well, it depends on, again, what your ultimate intention is, and if you're marching forward on the grant,
Mm-hmm.
then before the statement's gonna be issued, you have to show it going towards that grant fund. However it got there, because, there's money went back and forth, and the fact whether it's tied to something particular doesn't necessarily mean it's that. So if they wrote a check out to you guys for $49,000 to reimburse you for the bond fees you paid on the bond, okay? Does that mean that's only for the bond? That just means you got a check for 49 grand. Now, which fund you put that 49 in, and which fund you put the 400 grand in? So if your answer is, we want to establish in 2013 that we're gonna split this project in half, or a third and 2/3, and we're gonna identify every cost for our purposes, because again, just because it's its own fund doesn't mean it's its own project, it just means its own fund.
Right, I understand.
Okay, so if we establish two funds right now at the end of 2013, and either the 290 you can leave out because you're going, okay, we're not gonna, technically we get the money back, because they paid you more than 290 back. So you sent 290 in, you got 600 back, or $700,000 back from billing authority to reimburse you for some bills you wrote off. Okay, how that money goes back and forth, you can, it's not tied to anything right now if you don't want it. You can sit there and say, okay, what I want to do, and that's why those last 2 pages I gave you was, if you say, this is going to be a building authority, we're going to split those bills between craft architect, we're going to go back, and we're going to split the bills with construction engineers, and all those two bills between these two funds. So you'd have a fund called, whatever you want to call it, your emergency operations, and you have a fund called courthouse.
Yep.
And if you do that, and they say, okay, every bill that right now is in the general fund, over 700 grand is sitting there, right, because 804,000
Yeah.
Okay, that's in the general fund. If you say to that, I want that moved to these two funds based on this method. 34, I think it's 34.45% of the construction cost goes into EOC, the rest goes into construction. Now, Craft Architects said 59% of their bill was related to EOC, so you split that one, 59.41. I mean, then you would say, get those in those funds, rescind the transfer to 290 if you want to call it that, say it got its money back, so when the money came back, we are not going to move it out of those funds, we're going to take it all out of this EOC. If you do that, then those transfers in the middle would disappear, and you say, we're going to rescind the motion, make all those transfers, the 290 just comes out of the EOC fund that we wrote a check of, and we got reimbursed back from the building authority. But the 804 right now is sitting because you moved it all back into the general fund. If you want to split it up between those two funds, technically the EOC fund is going to be in the hole at the end of the year because it's got no money. EOC, you have no grant money, and right now you have no money committed from the county itself.
Like, when you say this 804 is in the general fund,
Yeah,
where is it in the general fund?
under courthouse. Cindy moved it all over, that's what you guys wanted to do.
That was at the end of the year, remember when you got your end of year report?
So there was a line item on there, 804,000.
Right, so when you look at, in this amount for 1,600,000, 800 of the courthouse.
Is that the 804 in 2013 over there?
Yeah,
But that's the expense.
yeah.
I mean, I was looking at the balance.
No, see, if you move the expense down, then this fund's gonna have no money.
What he's saying is that in 2013, the county expended $804,000 towards this project.
The dual project,
Yep.
both sides, yep.
Yeah.
That's right. And what you wanna do, right now, it's all in the general fund. And the money you got back from the building authority, reimbursed you, is in the general fund.
The money that, say it again?
The money that the building authority reimbursed you for the checks you wrote out is in the building fund. Or is in the general fund right now.
So it came out of the general fund and went back in the general fund.
Right. But see, what I'm saying is, that building authority money that came back right now can be allocated however you want to do it at this point in time. And it can go into that EOC fund, it can go into the courthouse fund. Technically, it would go into the courthouse fund because it covered the courthouse portion of the bills, the 65%. And I was gonna run that scenario showing that, but I decided not to. If I had that, then I always have a tendency to overdo stuff and get people going, oh, I had you made sense, now you lost me, because I've seen too many numbers. So,
Well,
Yeah, let me ask a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because I'm probably more confused than anybody. But like this 78,000 right here, if we said no, Cindy, move that 78,000 back into the emergency fund.
Yep.
You got that money available and you could put that money in the emergency fund.
no.
She says yes. These guys are saying yes.
when you say have the money available,
No.
Well, that's,
This is just allocations. If it got moved out of if it got put into the emergency fund, it would have to come out of something else. This is strictly, yeah.
but he says it's available.
No.
You're
when the term
saying
available, what do you mean by it?
that if we said to Cindy, put that $78,000 back into the emergency fund, we don't want to make that transfer.
Yes.
Where is Cindy gonna get that stuff?
What's gonna happen is, the fund you call EOC building is gonna be $500,000 in the hole. It's gonna be, you're gonna have a
Oh, it'd be a
fund.
negative.
Yeah, see, no, this isn't money that's sitting somewhere. This is just how
Yeah.
this money was allocated, put into piles,
Yeah,
and where we want to allocate it now. There's no, let's not get down, there's no pot of money sitting here underneath the thing.
That's kind of what I'm getting at. I mean, you sort of said that we have to decide if we want to approve this. Well, we don't really have any options on approving it. There's no money available to put back in the emergency fund, so.
That's right.
There's nothing to approve.
no, but, and it comes back to kind of what John was talking about, is, okay, if you're saying is, are you legally obligated on this money? And that's why you wanna show how much is technically you as a commission have borrowed to them by not having money come in that you wrote checks on.
Yeah, before you go forward, the one thing that this does say, Ron, is that in 2013, the number that we were always looking for, how much has the county contributed towards this project, was never $300,000 or $350,000. It was $804,000.
Well, but remember, you got checks back from the.
Yeah, I know,
But
but
as far as checks, we've done.
yep, yeah. So, but it's a complicated matter if we start moving. It's not going to make any difference, first of all, except that we might affect how this thing is looked at from the bond side or from the EOC
It's the
side.
outside people you're looking at, inside.
Yeah, right. And so we take money away from the other offices portion, and then that group looks at it and says, well, you guys now are using money outside the scope of what it was intended for. Or we take money away from the EOC side, and now they'll say, well, you haven't met your match.
Well, one of the three people really don't have the money. The question is, who didn't have the money? And the four office people never had money, if you don't use that term. I mean, it's just like that's the whole allocation you're talking about. Who moved money, now it's done. It's like, well, if we don't have money, or we need it for something else, do we now have money?
Let's talk present day. There was only one entity that, as of now, had any money, and that was the tax levy in support of the bond. That was it.
The 10 mil fund.
That's right.
Okay.
As of right now,
Yeah.
because there hasn't been a grant dollar come through on this thing, there was only one entity that had any money. And when the documents were signed, That was the only money that was assigned to the bond and to construction engineers contract and to this project. This thing was underfunded to the tune of $1.3 million because the grant money was never included into the 2014 budget. It was never amended to include the building authority being the primary builder of this thing. So the grant itself was issued to the county, but never updated. It really is a fictitious grant at this point because we haven't been able to draw the funds from it because of problems with the implementation.
The door's locked.
Yeah.
The door's locked. Yeah.
Right. And when anybody looks at this from the outside, any lending institution, any financial institution, they're going to say, you guys didn't have the money for this. You signed a contract without having the funds in place. And it really makes a big splash when you look at the contract that the county signed with construction engineers for $2.9 million. We signed a contract, the county signed a contract obligating us to $2.9 million without that much money behind it.
And 200 with Craft Architect too.
Okay, well. Zero collateral behind it and absolutely zero possibility of coming up with the money because, as you saw, we carried $29,000 forward into 2014. We didn't have, there's no way for the county to obligate the citizens to that money. We're out here in left field here looking for some way to try and make this work and running out of ideas.
You know, the one thing, and again, that's the part where the DES grant right now is still not set, and that's the things where, and we're kind of always repeating ourselves on a different subject, but in reality is, I still get the intent, the desire to make it work.
If they send us a check tomorrow, we're in good shape.
What I'm also saying is, but I'm saying they also want to. They haven't said,
nope,
this is the worst decision we ever made, we're out.
Nope.
Their answer is, we're going through, we're going forward, we're still going forward, we have not stopped.
What do we do today, Harold? Do we just wait to hear from them? I mean, that's kind of been my stance up till now, is just wait and see what they ask for next. What I heard you say earlier is we should have a plan for them to make this work.
You know, and if you really want, I mean, I could go through stuff and I wasn't sure the path here. I mean, I wasn't going to sit there and invest a ton of time. Maybe guys go, well, I think this grant stinks and I don't want to do it. And I was say, I'm not going to worry about trying to make it work. If you truly want to make it work, I'll take a look at stuff and I can bounce some ideas off of Jamie there and we can sit there and look at things and say, all right, is there a solution we could come up with that could meet their criteria? And the answer is, it's going to be very unique.
Yeah, because right now I got bad knees and the way it sounds, you're advocating praying.
Actually, not yet, because when I talked to Bismarck, and I tell you, her answer was on all the stuff she was giving all the right answer. He goes, well, I'm good with Craft Architects thing, that makes sense, and I'm good with using a percentage for the building, that makes sense. You're going, hey, because those two, you could easily just said, we're shutting that baby down. This is not right. Just like you know, should you have, and again, you should have said, okay, we want a contract to say, we got this huge contract with these guys, but we only need a little part of it.
Yeah.
We needed to split this bad boy in half.
Absolutely.
You want to buy word by word?
And the fact that they didn't.
Absolutely.
Now the question comes is, you know, and I'm not going to harass them all out either, but it's going to be a point of saying is, can you now accept a contract that way? Because you're kind of leaning that way. And what format do you need to see at DES to make it work? Then you talk to Jamie, and Jamie go, okay, Jamie, work your magic and get the words to dance, and then they say, we're happy with it. I mean, the fact of the matter is, it's a concept, and the concepts they still talked about are, we're willing to, if you can make this work, we're willing to pay you on this and this. And those two things you paid, that's 98% of the bill.
Well, that's and if we can somehow square with the Davis-Bacon portion of this also, which is a whole other matter that is outside the accounting format of it, but.
No, but I'm saying that's the things where, you know, from that perspective, then I'll go look through some more things and see if there's some magical thing that we can try to get a path.
You're working on the pre-audit right now?
Yeah, and that's, part of the things of discussing this, and that's why I brought those last 2 pages, because the biggest thing you have to pre-audit is you're gonna have to decide how you wanna split bills.
Well, that was my next question. What do you recommend? I mean, just from your previous statement,
Yep.
there's no way we can satisfy everybody with the allocation of these funds.
Correct.
Because
Somebody's,
if you take it away from the 4 offices, now you're you're breaking the law as far as the century code goes in the project funding,
Yeah, okay.
correct?
And the question is, do you wanna have another fund for that to show that you're all in compliance? And that's the other issue you might have to, so you might need 3 funds. But technically, the EOC fund right now is horrible shape. When you're all said and done, for example, where's it coming from? If you look at that report after I'm done, if I move stuff, that EOC fund is gonna be
Negative 400.
Negative.
Something.
$423,000. That's what's gonna happen. And at the end of this, actually, as of today, it'd be $1 million in the hole.
Right, but that's where it's gotta stay, it's gotta reflect what actually happened.
No, I totally agree with it.
Yeah, I mean,
But that's the part where being in the general fund doesn't reflect it right now. Because it's like commingled, that bad word,
But
commingled.
if this was done correctly in the 2014 budget, when the project gets done, that should be $988,000 in the hole, and the reimbursement from the DES should bring it back to par. I mean, that's how it ought to work, right?
That's exactly how it should work.
Okay.
okay, yeah, right, but as of the time that we took office, we have operated under the rules that were set forth by our predecessors.
Correct.
If we go and start changing what they've done, as far as this other offices thing, as far as the EOC matches, we could potentially endanger them, the building authority, and the financing of this thing by moving this around,
Well-
and endanger ourselves. We can't very well undo what they did for the sake of trying to game the system here.
No, and you know, the ultimate goal isn't to sit there and have everybody just plug their nose and say, let's do something. The ultimate goal is to try to find a way to actually make it work. And under no circumstances or anything to say, are we gonna try to just say, let's just make a motion today to rescind everything that happened? No, that was never a recommendation of it. Now, the thing is, can you say, just make what was done work? I mean, you come to that conclusion yourself. It can't do that.
Well, I don't know.
No, so there's gonna be a third path. There's gonna have to say, okay, we need this third path to say is, we need to honor the 290, we need to honor the grant, and we need to honor the bond people. Like, if everybody to find something that just, not just pick somebody to be a big loser and say, we're gonna be just make a loser. Try to find a way, just like you're talking about, at the end of the day, it's gonna be 988.5 in the hole, and then the next day, boom, it's 0. Now, how, that's a structure we'll be looking at to try to get you to that spot, but it's gonna be where DES is gonna have to formally accept that you could submit a bill on an entire building, this portion of it, and they will reimburse for that portion. Now, they haven't said they're not gonna do that, but there's nothing formally right now to say they will do it.
Well,
So do we need to do that before we do this? There's no sense in doing
Right.
this if they say, no, that ain't gonna
Right, no, I mean, I'm not proposing to do these things today.
work. Okay.
If you said, I want the audit report at the next meeting, then I'd say you need to decide on that today. If you're saying is, at the next meeting, let's see what we can get done, and if you say, and you come to a conclusion, John talks about saying, this is a dead horse, then you go, well, then we gotta try to figure out something else.
fix it. But what you just said, that the DES hasn't said, they have said. Exactly that, and I'll find it here for you. That was in the 8 points that they
There
put
have to be
forward.
2 construction funds?
You're right.
Yeah, they said that
No,
specifically.
right, and you know what, I tell you, I think if, you know, one of the baselines, if you talk about this whole process, go back to the letter you had in the minutes back whenever, when you were still running. Every point you raised is still a point that needs to be addressed today.
Yeah, probably.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, 'cause I went right through it, I went, yep. And Yeah, but the way,
Don't you think the first step is to see what they say on our current request?
well,
Aren't they gonna send, I mean, they're gonna send us a letter on the current
well, yeah,
request?
if they do, but the problem you're gonna have is, how long are you gonna wait before you, I mean, if it's another month comes and they're still looking at it, and there's another month comes and they're still looking at it. You need to decide at your level when you're gonna pull the trigger and be proactive and say, okay, listen, I understand, you're still looking at it, let's see if we can get this looking a little faster.
Okay, here's the point that you said hasn't been addressed, but it has been. It's number 5 and 6 in the letter from the joint staff advocate. 5 says EOC grant program funds are the responsibility of Griggs County and must not be used for any purpose other than the EOC construction. Number 6 says that EOC grant money may not be mixed with building authority construction dollars for any project other than the EOC. Thus, there should be separate construction funds which contain EOC construction dollars. So the idea of combining the projects together into one big project goes completely contrary to what they're telling us. They're saying you have to actually have them two separate projects, and you had to have it from the start.
And as far as right now, nothing externally has changed from the start,
From an accounting
from
standpoint.
a accounting standpoint. As I'm saying is, if you establish 2 funds right now, you meet that criteria.
What I got out of that is the building fund, or the bond proceeds could flow through the EOC fund.
I don't think you wanna do that. You don't wanna do that.
It's-
But see-
I know, I still wouldn't wanna do that.
I'm just trying to find a way for the.
You can have a fund in the hole.
For the right. No, yeah, I understand that.
You know,
But you don't want it in the hole at the end of the day,
I would agree with
or
your
at the end of
point.
the year.
I would agree with your point from an accounting standpoint, other than the fact that the documents they used to formulate this response was the lease agreement and the funding documents. So they looked at it from the start of it, how it was funded, not how we allocate funds after the fact. And that's why we have the problem. They said, well, this was never set up to be separate projects. It is one project.
No.
You can't go back and say, well, that lease agreement, that's not right. This is the way it's supposed to be.
No, the point you're talking about refer to if you keep everything together and move everything together. Now, what they're saying is, and almost every construction project has this, is in the bond agreements, the first thing they say is you will establish a construction fund. And we'll deposit the proceeds from that bond issue into that construction fund, and it can only be used for construction. Okay.
Yeah.
That is the bond. Now, this is the things where if you say everything that happened, we're gonna do as it exactly happened, then you're in the quandary you're just talking about. You're saying I can't do 2 funds because it says here I can't. What they're saying is you got to do 2 funds, but you didn't. He goes, well, yes, technically, I have a fund right now in the hole called the EOC fund. And whenever you decide that you're going to use those funds, that's when you say, I got $400,000 I moved from the general fund to the EOC fund, and I got 0 revenue. Then I've got this building authority fund, or building fund, that's going to have the rest of it. Then I'm going to have this 3rd fund called a 10 mil fund, which is paying back the lease. But in this fund, the building authority one, that's what they're referring to. They say, you show me this building. So, I mean, as long as you have separate funds, they want to account for what is their project. And you're saying that is your project.
Right, and they determined what the project was by the lease agreement. We hadn't even got into any of this. They wanted to see the lease agreement. They looked at the lease agreement, then they wrote these recommendations before anything was submitted.
Yeah, I know.
So they looked at it and they said, well, they looked at the lease agreement and they said, well, this isn't separate.
No,
Then they wrote this, not after the fact.
yeah. No, but see, this is a part where if they say,
Well, let's see if they'll say it. Let's see if they'll do that then. I mean, we're open for anything that can happen to make this move forward, short of endangering the county or putting the county in danger or ourselves in danger of litigation. But if whatever will work to make this work, we've been through this so many times, everybody says, well, there's got to be something you can do. Well, then, what do we do?
Right.
Okay, we're open for that, and when they throw their hands up and say, well, there's got to be something we can do, then they take it to the fact that, well, they don't want to do anything. Well, that isn't the case. We could very well do more harm by proceeding forward here with a plan when we don't know what they want.
Yeah. Yeah, you're truly right now in a chicken and eggs environment, and or else who's gonna blink first? Because if you look at reimbursements, they're going, well, you got to break it up. They go, well, how do I break it up? They go, well, you just break it up. And you go, well, that doesn't help me. And that's where everybody's at. They're going. The only thing everybody agrees with is you can't do what your first plan on do. Everybody agrees that wasn't going to work. That's where everybody's at right now, saying, yeah, that was not a good idea.
Do you know what the first plan was? Exactly as it's laid out in the grant, how you do this.
Yeah, no, I saw that.
The grant states, here's how you do it. We're going right by the letter of the grant, and we're turning it in, and they're saying, no, that's not the way to do it because the grant was never awarded to the right party.
No.
We're going right, the application for the grant, how you apply for payments is right down the line.
I've read those things many times myself. I know what you're
So this isn't some improvising on our part. What we're being asked to do is improvise, and we don't know which way to go. Because no one will give us any guidance, because no one wants to take any responsibility, and no one is willing to take the risk on doing something for fear it might be wrong and jeopardize the grant. Any more than it already is.
Well, actually right now, either grant is I don't think you can make it any worse. Okay, I don't think you can do something to put it at any more risk than it.
Sure you can. They haven't rejected it yet.
No. Well, I suppose you could make some totally off the wall statement to them that would they go, okay, now we're done with you. Yeah, you could make it worse. Yeah, you could make it worse.
So is it fair to say that you know what our intentions are?
Yep.
At this point?
I know exactly your intentions.
As you complete this pre-audit,
yep,
you will try to draw us a picture on your best guess on how to make this work.
Yep, I will do that then. I will gladly do that.
Okay. That's all we can ask, I think.
And I think part of it's also going to be coming back and we'll talk about those funds again, type of thing. Because, I mean, ultimately, and again, going forward, there's still at some point in time where you've committed, obligated, whatever term you want to use, the 329. And at this point in time, that's part of the pieces, but you're going to have to decide how much you want to actually, and what you want to do about it. But I mean, if this thing finishes, that's something you guys still have to come up with, because it was never drawn out before.
Right, but even if we leave the 329 as the other offices, is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking about is for you to get to 988, you have to show them you spend another 329.
Right.
Yeah.
Some.
If we take this, yeah, but there's not enough money to do both of them. You couldn't allocate enough for the other offices plus our 25%.
Not unless you spend another.
Not unless you spend another 300,000.
Well, you can do that anyway, aren't you?
How do you do that?
Aren't they going to have cost overruns?
I mean, how do you do that? I mean, if there was the money, sure, if there was the money in the account to do that, we would do that, but there isn't.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying.
So if we take the 329 as it's allocated now to the other offices and allocated to the...
You need to come with 500 or 615,000.
See, they wanted their cake and eat it too. They wanted to use it for the other office, plus they wanted to use it for the match. That was the intent. That doesn't work.
Get rid of the bond.
Well, I think the intention was to use the bond, and this is where it comes back to is, if you look at the totality, you're going to use that term. And then you can say, can we use this 290 as part of our 329 in the totality?
I think the bond was going to be used for the 25% match, but you're telling me you wouldn't do that.
No.
Right. So
I mean, unless they came back and said, we want you to do that.
No matter where we start painting, we always get ourselves painted in a corner a long ways from the door.
And you don't want us to use the bond for the match because that crosses the line between the private and the public entity.
Yeah. Any crosswalks.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, if all of a sudden, I mean, if they specifically wrote you and said, use the bond, and you're going, we're gonna use the bond, but I don't think they're never gonna write that letter to you. I mean, but in theories, if they would say to you, you know, if they say, okay, let's go big picture, let's just use the whole 3.5 million, and then however you come to the 329, I just can't see them doing that, but I mean, if they would do that, that'd be a sweet deal.
Well, I mean, they've got the judge advocates, I mean, it, in 4 different instances, it says not to.
No, I know, that's, I
not to
just,
do that.
I don't see how it ever could work, per se.
So the bond can't be the match either, so what you're saying as of now, we're either short on the other offices or we're short on the match. Yeah,
Troy,
as we said.
the DS has already said you can use the bond money for match. They've already said that. 100% of the
You
money.
say a lot of things, Bob, but I never see it in writing.
Well, Troy,
I'd like to see
100%
that.
of the money you sent in for reimbursement was paid by the bond. The county has wrote a check. So all the money that's out there asked for reimbursement, that was bond money.
And we're asking Harold to
Right.
separate the accounting into 3 different, or at least 2 different funds to prove that we were doing this correctly.
Right. Well, what I'm saying is, the DS, that question was asked besides others than me here too. And they said local funds, the bond money is local funds. It's tax
Where
dollars.
does it say
in each
that?
county.
Where does it say that?
What's that?
Where does it say
No,
that?
I'll dig it up.
no,
It says-
see, actually, the bond,
Because what I'm getting at is, so far, the construction bills that have been paid, to my knowledge, have been all paid by the bond, the building authority. So,
no, there's actually a couple of payments.
right, but small, very small.
No,
The rest of it's been, I mean, the bulk has been bond.
The bulk has been the bond, but I mean, there was,
And then they said that was okay, because that's local funding.
well, see, this is part when they say that too sometimes, and
Right.
the question, the way it's answered, if you'd had Griggs County bond money, that's local money. Griggs County Building Authority bond money, this is when they start splitting hairs.
Yep.
Right.
And that's the parts where, again, that's, so sometimes when they answer the question, the generic answer is, yeah, it is local, it is. If it's your money, it's local.
And that's also where we can get ourselves in trouble, because it's not public money. So you can't flow that in and out of the county either.
It is by no means public money. It is wholly private money. It just happens to be guaranteed by a tax levy, but it is a private issuance bond. And it happens to be guaranteed by tax dollars, but there is a disconnect there on purpose.
Right, and if you ask,
That's the reason for a trustee.
right, but if you ask anybody, that's what those building authorities, and that's one of those, you know, all the fun things that governments do to finance outside the box. This is one of them.
Outside
Yes.
the voters, did you say?
Outside the box.
Well,
But see, the problem you have is, John, and what you say exactly right, but in their mind, it's still the county's money. No, that's a county's bond.
no.
Oh, no, I mean, that's how people see it, even though it's not true. That's the way people see it.
We're talking 2 different. This is called the Griggs County Building Authority.
Right, no, I know,
This is not
I know.
the Griggs County Building Authority as the Griggs County would set up a building authority. This is set up outside the boundaries of. This was not set up by Griggs County.
He knows
This was a private entity, but nobody's trying to treat them as the same.
No, he's not. He's saying they're different.
I'm saying they're different, and some people perceive them as the same. Outside people perceive you as the same.
No. There's a building authority that is set up by the county.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about. This is a private entity that's calling itself a building authority that does not have the same connection with local government as the building authority as the building authority you're talking about. This building authority is the building authority by name, and its connection with the government is this statute 57-15-59. We're talking 2 different building authorities because this one that we have here is not an actual per se building authority as with most building projects.
As a typical building.
That's right. So you can't make the correlation.
Right.
The one you're talking about is guaranteed by the full faith and credit of all the funds in that county. This one is only guaranteed by the specific amount set aside in the mill levy.
Most building authorities that are set up within the county government structure, their repayment is a revenue bond, not a general obligation. So the taxpayers really aren't generally obligated for those repayments. If you look at a nursing home or something, they can fail. The bondholders, I mean, and the rates reflect that.
Yep.
This The only connection is the revenue stream,
Right.
not the proceeds of the bond.
Yes.
But this is a different animal than a building authority associated with, as we see most building authorities. And it was named building authority, I think, for that reason, to make the assumption that they were the same, but they're not.
And with that said, if you ask the question in the right way, you might get the wrong answer.
Yeah, that's right. That's why I never like giving people an answer, go yes or no, go, can you do that? Yeah. How do I do it?
Right.
Yeah. No, that's,
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's, so I mean, that's the part where again, and probably run into is, and I know Bob and all, in all good faith, they gave you that answer. And I'll tell you, the first time they were told they were stupid.
Depends on how you ask the question.
No, but the first
They
time,
might not have,
Right.
it might have been wrong.
that's their first answer. The
Yeah.
second thing is if their chain above them says you can't do it, they're gonna go, I think you misquoted me, or you must have asked the wrong question. I mean, that's the part where I think even if you got an answer from DES right now, it'd be with the, based on the final approval from Colorado.
That's the
or-
part where I asked for the letter that states that.
And in Bob's defense, here's where he's getting at. This is number 7 of the judge advocate's letter, and it says, this does not preclude Griggs County from using building authority generated funding for its cost share. However, when lease payments are made by the county to the building authority, it should not include the EOC space or should be prorated only for the funds that were used for that local cost share. So he's right in the first part of it, but we can't meet the second part of it. But they should have split that sentence into 2
Yeah.
parts also.
Yeah, so,
Because you can't do one without the other, but
you're warm fuzzy, right? Hey, we're good.
it starts out that they do say that, but it's preference with the fact that we can't change what's happened.
Okay, well. Good
We'll get
luck.
something for your next meeting then for you, so.
As they say in the movies, good luck, Harold, we're all counting on that.
Well, that's why I had one question.
You got another question?
Well, we have a lump sum contract for the pre-audit, and you're doing all these extra services as part of that. You're not gonna hit us with a change order and say, geez,
Did I?
I did all this
No.
extra work for you guys.
Nope.
But you're doing that as part of your.
Mr. Wilson asked me a question, I gave him an
Okay,
answer in
good.
December, did I
Okay,
not?
I
Thank
just
you.
wanted
Yes, you
to-
did.
That's very nice of you.
That was part of the, Ron, to back that up. I had that discussion with Harold.
Oh, okay.
And that was part of our discussion with, we talked to some other auditors and we were pretty unsure of ourselves when we came in here.
Yeah,
And we were going, okay, do we need a different set of eyes, blah, blah, blah.
okay.
And I knew we needed a pre-audit for this because it's over $500,000 of federal funds.
Okay.
And Harold and I had that discussion
Okay.
as part of that whole overarching discussion.
Okay.
And he said it's really, as you do the audit, you're gonna look at that project anyway, but it'll be like a chapter in the audit.
Okay.
So,
I think you misunderstood me.
Do you have that in writing?
That's the wrong question.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Harold.
thanks, Harold.
Could we said this very mess as a misunderstanding? Make a motion to take a break.
Been moved and seconded that we take a 10-minute recess. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Good job. You kind of left me to the dust, but.
Look at the schedule.
Gonna give one to John. You read so much faster than me. It'll take me half an hour to read it.
Well, they're talking about moving all these funds, do this, do that, whatever.
Besides that, I have to go, so. I'm gonna run downstairs.
I don't know the answer.
I know,
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I figured you'd see.
Sunshine, you guys. Well, we tried.
Did you?
And I know I wasn't very careful because of this.
I sent you an email yesterday. You guys got it.
No, John was,
See, one thing you
Oh, yeah, I know what happened. I think it's a mess. And in my opinion, by the time you keep this building up for 20 years, you might be able to blow up, just forget about the grant. I mean, that's my personal.
And I understand that. That's a math problem that can be done. I don't know what the answer to that equation is, but you might very well be right. Now with that said, Lauren, if that's the path we chose, how do we fund it? The completion of it?
I think.
Yeah, how do we fund it? The destruction of this building, if in fact that's what we want to do. We don't have any money.
Oh,
we're down for you, we're down for
Because I have a customer that's staying, they're putting concrete in their parking lot,
I think so. I don't get it, but it's.
and the bills, the estimates they got from Interstate or whoever it is, 300,000 just, and they already have the parking lot.
I have no answer for how you fund this thing after it got this way.
That was there too.
The only thing. I don't know if it helps you to go ahead and work on the grant.
Short term, it seems like a thing to do. Long term, I'm not for sure, but I don't know how to
If
fix
you
it.
go ahead with the grant, then you gotta keep it.
You're keeping our chair warm.
Oh, goodness sake. I didn't mean to steal your chair. Yeah, but she didn't want to sit in a cold chair.
Oh, you are?
Bernard Miller.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I take it all.
No, I think.
Oh, that's not your chair. No.
So the city.
Games.
I could hear it.
So you hang out with your bosses, must be.
A little bit, yeah.
What is your husband?
He is doing, taking over Dakota Senior Stutters.
Is that Tim Walry?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't.
Yeah, he's the owner of that now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Does he do it himself or do you have somebody working for him?
He's getting trained in by Tim.
Can you do that by yourself?
He's got some tools to put one end up and hang it and glue the other end maybe.
Well, and like in houses, you maybe don't run into a long
Right.
stuff a lot. And I think Tim has the homeowner's help.
Oh,
If they're, like, if you got a 60-foot
Sure.
thing, I think that's how it works. I work.
I mean, once you get it up, then you get it set.
My uncle had a seamless gutter service at Fargo when I was in college and I worked for him. Well, we did a lot of those apartment buildings, like West Acres and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it'd be pretty hard to do that by yourself.
Sure.
They're 3 stories high. We'd have 4 ladders and, climb up together.
Had the brackets there and then just went up and said,
Well, the
"Man,
brackets clip over the
oh,
but,
yeah."
but
But you still have a saddle that it's at, and then,
no, we have
oh,
saddles.
straps off.
The bracket clipped in underneath.
Oh, okay, so you then
And
hooked
then
it under.
snapped over the back.
Yeah. So you didn't have
You
anything
have
over,
oh, it's
the,
full, there's nothing over it.
Yeah.
Nothing down. So then when you climb up there, there'd be guys on the roof, so we'd hold them on there and then clip the things and the nailers would be up on top. Then those guys stand there with their toes on the edge of the shingle.
I can't do that, I didn't do a header. So I said I hate heights.
Well, I don't imagine you could do it anymore, unless you had a water steering on. You'd have to have a harness on. This one wants to get on here. Well, next to the agenda.
Yeah.
No. Okay. Hook wants, Bob wants a pumpkin. Are you gonna
If
hear
it's
me?
quick.
I'll give him 5 minutes.
All right.
Reconvene the meeting. Commissioners at 2:45. Okay, Bob?
Reference that emergency response vehicle, there's some discussion of that. It doesn't matter to me who maintains it or who keeps it, but I think we should have it here in Griggs County, and we've had reasons in the past to use that. There's discussions about the fire department getting it. If they want it, I'm absolutely okay with that, as long as we have it, and it's available to us. We've got the equipment for it, laying in storage, just put it together. I think there's been some discussions with the fire department, and I believe they will take it.
I don't know.
If we want to get it out of the county's hands for some reason, we can see if they'll take it. I have no heartache with that, as long as we have it here for us to use.
Yeah, it was pretty general discussion, but, you know, I talked to Rick Cushman in general, just, you know, what about, would you like to have it, that type of thing, but, I mean, one thing I wanna make sure of, well, just that it's legal, I mean, the Cooper, I suppose Binford and Hannaford, I mean, if we give it to the Cooperstown Fire Department, are we, it's giving county property to Cooperstown and not giving, is that right?
If I can just explain one quick thing
Yeah.
here. The reason that vehicle was gotten and put under my care is because obviously we're full-time, I've got paid staff that can be there in a moment's notice to get it moving. That's why it started there. Where it ends up, I mean, that thing will be used in Binford and Cooperstown. You know, the last time we could use it
Hannaford.
would have been Hannaford, you know. And they don't have the manpower to take care of it in their department.
Well, wouldn't there be some advantages? I mean, it could be stored where other emergency vehicles are.
If there's room right now, there's Cooperstown, they'll be sitting outside, I'm assuming.
Dispatch from a central location,
I mean, I'll tell you,
multiple
I don't know
people could be
how involved you guys
trained.
are in the fire in here. Right now, if there's something serious going on, in Cooperstown, basically the first call we make, and then call, made for Hanford, that's just reality. The manpower is not there in the other two communities. I mean, Cooperstown even struggles at times to get people there quickly, but the odds are better, way better.
Yeah, but and I don't know if the Cooperstown Fire Department has the money needed. I imagine there's several $1,000s to get the thermal imaging mounted in there and the other stuff.
Thermal imaging, it's all hooked together. We got to mount it,
Okay.
and then it gets hooked into one of our computer docks, which I have extra ones of those from our past computer. I've got a computer that one of our replacements, the prior, it'll operate that piece of equipment perfectly.
So
I've got two of them waiting for that.
We don't have to
stuff together.
we don't have to have Travis do a lot of work then.
He would have to hook up to probably the thermal imager stuff. He's the only one I know that can do it. But I mean, but Ron, you gotta weigh the cost for that for the benefit. I mean,
well, I'm just wondering what the costs are, and if the Cooperstown Fire Department has the money to do that. And I don't know if they do or not. So.
They're districted, aren't they?
Yeah, well, I
So-
think
I
they probably maybe they-
Hanford's got money. They might pitch in and help set that
Yeah,
up.
I'm just saying I didn't really pursue it far enough to find out if the Cooperstown Fire Department.
Well, does
really
somebody want
wanted
to talk
do
to the
that.
fire department when they have a meeting or something?
Sure. After your guys' meeting, when you talked about that, about selling that before, I did talk about the ambulance and the fire rescue buying that together.
Yep.
You know, that wouldn't be an issue. I mean, if you guys are gonna sell it and then keep that in, to get that equipment, put it there and then put it in cold storage so that if they needed it or whoever needs it.
And just to go one step further, to me, if we sold that to the ambulance or the fire rescue, that's not right. I mean, the county got that vehicle for free for the purpose that it's intended to use. So I don't think we should be selling anything. We should just, if they're willing to help absorb the cost to set it up, we can put the call out. So I mean, however that goes. I mean, I have no love affair with the vehicle. I mean, we just need to get it going, so we got to use it.
So could we just donate it to the fire district in Griggs County? My concern is that it's an older vehicle, and if we keep using it as a patrol vehicle, it's gonna wear out.
Right, and then it's never intended for that use. It has not been used for that.
And if it's set up and used.
Pardon?
So it said in the paper today.
It's been used as a backup vehicle, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about reality here.
But anyway, if we get it to a specific purpose, it'll last forever. I mean, it's not gonna get called out.
Yeah, that vehicle is owned by the state of North Dakota, so the maintenance on it has been impeccable.
Right, but I mean, if we keep using it as a patrol vehicle, it will wear out and it'll incur a lot of costs. I think we should get it to, it makes sense, the fire department is emergency rescue, I mean, that makes sense to me, but.
There's no hard to get on that.
Yeah, it just, I think you said it had a V12 engine, and that V10 engine, okay, that just sounds like a lot of dollars, as soon as anything goes wrong, that.
Right, it said it was never bought to use a patrol vehicle.
Yeah.
Somebody want to put that in the form of a motion, or are we just?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know if Rick will accept it, but he kind of indicated that he'd accept it.
Well, I'm sure he's got to go with his people too. He can't
Yeah.
make a decision on his own, just like none of us can.
So, sure, I can move that we offer the emergency services vehicle to the fire department.
And related equipment.
And related equipment to the fire department, yeah.
Fire rescue.
Fire
Are they
rescue.
different? Are they separate?
They're separate.
organizations? Separate districts.
Together on it, so,
Yeah.
I mean, if they
Okay.
don't have the money, they-
Whatever. Yeah.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. John?
Aye.
Dale?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Bob. Wayne?
Gone already.
Huh?
Has it gone already? Oh.
Okay, well, let's go, we'll go to the construction contract for,
Cindy?
mail.
Oh, you're gonna do mail first? Renaissance, he said that he had no problem with the engineering costs, and so he didn't stay.
Well, I came back.
Oh! Oh, sorry!
I'm back. I'm glad
That's approved by
That's all right.
I was gonna.
I didn't look. He said he was gonna leave it, so.
He's undercover. Oh, bad.
Well, and I think Cindy and Wayne cleared that up between the last meeting and this meeting, that whole process was bid as one package, correct? So,
I think she advertised it legally.
so, okay, proceed.
Okay, so we have a standard form of agreement between Griffith County and Mayo Construction. Who was the lowest bidder on that project? You over Sutton, right?
I did review the bids and they were indeed a little better. There was one mathematical error, but that was on the high bid.
Page 21.
What page are you on?
21.
Oh.
This is an email from Sean to Cindy and me. Where we talked about the review the bids. Mayo was lowest for $1,677,333.41. Jamie looked it over, or?
I believe I saw a copy of
It's the same one that we emailed before, isn't
it.
it?
Okay. I didn't see a copy of that one.
So, you're recommending that we accept the
I'm
last bid?
recommending that we accept the Mayo Construction Incorporated Company as the low bidder. And we will sign that.
Do we need a motion to accept the bid? Yep.
That's the new sign. No, this is the new sign.
Made originals.
Oh, you made originals,
There's
okay.
3 copies. One would be yours, one would be the contractor, and one would be the engineer. And this is just the notice that you did award the project.
Okay, and I have to put this in the paper, or you put it in the paper, or what?
No, that just goes to the contractor saying that it was awarded to them.
Okay. He gave you an original. Yeah, but you probably, you rescinded it, so you need to remake the motion on it. In the minutes, last meeting. Because you wanted us to look into it.
Yeah.
Here's the original.
Oh.
I didn't know you were bringing a new one.
The other one was the seal coat one that, the seal coat was approved, you know, the engineering.
The engineering is the only thing I have a question, right?
Well, there's two issues here. There's the engineering for the project on the Sutton Road, the overlay that we're talking about with Mayo Construction. That's the one I brought up, that was $162,000. And I have brought that contract today, if you so choose. The one that we discussed at the last meeting was for the seal coat project, which would be the Binford Road. And that one is separate from this.
Okay.
Two separate engineering contracts.
Yeah, I'm trying to read back over the last meeting minutes, because it was that 162,000 that we ended up moving to rescind until we
No.
made sure it was done properly.
No.
No.
We never got to that. We never got to that one. That's a contract I have right here. For
That's,
Oh,
that's the
okay.
one, right?
project, yes.
That was brought into question on whether or not it was, put the papers correctly.
Well, I moved to rescind the previous motion for chip seal and overlay.
Hmm?
I'm reading from the meeting minutes.
Oh, okay.
Page 10. It says Rondell moved to rescind his previous motion for chip seal and overlay. Okay.
The engineering portion of it. But
Yeah,
If we'd already approved
yeah.
the seal coat company more suitable.
But
Signed by Troy.
First thing is to approve, if you so approve to award the contract to
Mayo.
Mayo, then we can.
So right now, we're dealing with the 2-inch overlay on the Sutton Road. I'd entertain a motion that we accept Mayo Construction's bid and sign the contract with them.
Yeah, I'll move that we accept Mayo Construction's bid in the amount of $1,677,333.41 for the reference project.
Thank you, Ron. Is there a second to the motion?
I'd move the second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. John?
Aye.
Dale? Aye. Ron? Aye.
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carries. Now, do we need to act on the engineering portion of this?
Both of them.
Overlay?
Yes.
Yes, I have the contract for start construction engineering on that project. It's in the amount of $162,000. And that would have been tied with that proposal and acceptance that was done last year.
Do I have contracts for that?
You're talking about the one that was signed and rescinded last month? That-
No, the other one, the big one. The big one.
The one we're signing right now? No.
That's the mail. Where's the KLJ portion of
This
it?
was sent a while ago, wasn't it, Wayne? I think Benny had emailed this to you, to review. Which one?
I think that one, this is the one that was given to him last month?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not that one, or is it the same one?
There's two different contracts. This is for the overlay project on the
This is
Sutton
for the
Road.
chip seal.
That's just for the chip seal project, so they're
Yeah,
two
two
separate
different
contracts.
And what are the amounts of the two separate contracts again?
This is the overlay one.
The overlay is $162,000.
Okay, and the other one?
This one was $1,677,333.
The other engineering contract was
30 for the 30
$33,200.
Yeah, 30, how much?
$33,200.
33,000,
It's in
okay.
there, isn't it? This one?
It would be on the last sheet. Continuing past the actual signatures. It won't be there.
And then you'll get it back to us after.
I'll send it to the contractor and have them sign it, and I'll go back and I'll need that notice of award to send to them.
Choice lines out, and now you don't need this one. Okay, I'll get a copy of that too. I'll get a copy of that?
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
This one's 33,200, and this is for the chip seal and overlay. The one I have sitting in front of me now is this bituminous pavement overlay that we just approved the contract for Mayo. Does anybody want to take a stab at that one? This one's for the 162,000. I'll look here for you.
One of them was signed.
162,000.
The construction and the construction engineering are reimbursed by the state funds at 90%.
And that's the one, Lauren, you said you had no problems with it, was?
Well, no,
Yeah.
they were done properly, and Cindy did everything she was supposed to.
Okay.
So I'll move that the $162,000 proposal from KLJ for the engineering on the bituminous be approved.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
I'd move second.
Seconded by Sean. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. Sean?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
Dale?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carries. Next on the file here is the chip seal and overlay. It's a professional services contract for that with KLJ. It's $33,200. I'd entertain a motion to accept that contract as presented.
Also move.
Moved by John, is there a second?
I move second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. Sean?
Aye.
Ron? Dale?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carries. Is that it?
Wayne has something here.
I have
Thank you very
a
much.
funding reimbursement
It's gonna take me
for the
4
portion of that engineering. The state pays 90%.
That's a request that you need to
This is a request that needs
submit.
to be signed by Troy
Okay.
to,
We'll take that and send it in for reimbursement on the
Okay.
this is
engineering.
some previous engineering.
That would have been the design engineering on the overlay. project.
Oh, this is work that's already been done?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I would entertain a motion to request reimbursement for the engineering costs that's been done up to this point. For, well, it doesn't say what the project is. Oh,
The CNOA project, it would be the Sutton Road.
the
overlay.
Sutton Road overlay project. The amount is, the county has paid $17,060. The reimbursement from the state would be $15,354.
I move we sign the request for reimbursement for engineering services.
Thank you, Sean. Is there a second?
I'd move the second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. Sean?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
Dale?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carries. Okay.
Okay, the next, I think that's all the engineering contracts. Then the next, we'll go to the artist and probably side. I requested a $2 per hour increase for all Griggs County wood employees, trying to keep the current employees that we have. In comparison to the surrounding counties, I sent out an email that showed the what we have paid so far. This was for the first 4 months at the current salaries, and what it would be for the next 8 months at the $2 per hour increase. And then there's one in here for the 2014 complete salary printout. That's, and then I included in the comparison of Nelson County Road Department wages and benefits and Steele County Road Department wages and benefits. We have 2 employees that are making $15.48 an hour, and they've been employed for over 2 years, coming on 3 years in July. And in Nelson County, I don't remember what exactly it was they started for the first 6 months, and then they go to $17.63 per hour for their employees. Nelson County pays for a full health insurance. If you have a family plan, they pay the family plan. If you have a single policy, they pay single policy. Sick leave and vacation is pretty much the same as we get. They work 5 9-hour days. Overtime's paid after 8 hours. You get 11.5 holidays like we do. And the county pays for both shares of the retirement also. Steele County, they start out at $16.78, and that's where they stay. $16.78 per hour for a brand new hire. But I did talk to someone from Steele County, and I didn't write her name down right away. But she was looking to see if we had any incentive program that would keep the current employees that they had to. And so then I said, well, I'd set up a program quite a few years ago where after 15 years they got $25 more a month. 20 years they got $50 more. 25 years they got $75 more, and after 30 years they got $100 more per month. I did hire Kenny Sandvik, and I think you probably knew that, to replace Craig Briss, and starting out at $15 an hour is where I started paying him. And then I requested in 6 months after his 6-month probation to increase him to $16.50.
Well, here's how I feel about this, Wayne. It appears that with this, it didn't take you very long to fill that position, so I don't know that, I guess I'll make several points. We're kind of a horse apiece with the surrounding counties, it looks like to me. Our acceleration rate over years of service is possibly slower than the surrounding counties. The fact that it took so little time to fill this position, it doesn't seem like we're way out of the market locally in the labor market. I personally think that if we're gonna tweak the wages, May isn't the time to do it. I think this is something that we should do through the budgetary process. I fail to see this tremendous urgency at this time, but that's just me. I think you have some good points, and again, if they, obviously they were in existence through the last budgetary cycle, that seems like the right time to deal with issues of this nature.
I
So,
realize it's a hard time of the year to do it, but there is funds available in that highway fund, but
so it's 16.78 an hour they pay at Steele County,
yes.
and 17.63 at Nelson County?
Per hour in Nelson County.
They're right straight across the board, everybody.
Everybody factors. After 6 months, it's the same all the way across.
Okay, if you add up our 8 wages hourly and divide it by 8, we're paying we average at 17.97, so we're the highest one of the 3.
So we don't average, so.
What's that?
I said we don't average.
No, but as far as the budget process, Griggs County has a higher budget for the employees than the other 2.
Yeah, we may have, I don't know if we have the same amount of employees or less.
Well, it doesn't matter, I did it on an hourly basis. I added up our 8 hourly wages and divided it, and it comes to 17.97, which Nelson County pays 17.63 and Steele County pays
Like Steele
16.78.
County, they don't have any employees that have been there more than probably 4 years.
Yeah. No, I'm just making a point that from a budgetary standpoint, Griggs County is actually paying more per employee than surrounding counties.
And I'm just comparing it to like CHS. We lost one good employee there, and we could possibly lose another one that works for part-time. So. Yeah, we were very fortunate to get Mr. Sandberg. But I didn't think I was going to get anybody for a while, so one of my guys talked to him and discussed that we needed somebody bad, and he had a CDL license, and now he can walk to work.
That's probably something to be discussed at budget time, but if we do this right now, then next week we'll be talking to the social services, and the week after that we'll be talking to the courthouse employees, and then
I understand.
Then we'll be forced to give ourselves a raise.
I think you should.
Double it.
I think,
but I mean, it's a good. I agree with the concept of it. I just don't know if the money's there or not. And this probably isn't the time.
I promised my guys to agree with
Yeah.
And whatever the consequences are, I'll bring it up again at budget time.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I think that's the way to handle it.
Anything else, Wayne?
I don't think so. Can I go home?
You can go wherever you want.
All right.
All right, thanks,
Thanks,
Wayne.
Wayne.
Thanks for thinking about it anyway.
Yep.
Okay. Next thing I have on the agenda here is social services, and I put this on the agenda. Sean and I, as you guys know, are on the social services board, and we had a meeting last week after SIA received a request from the Nelson County Director, Social Services Director, which is Marcia, to send some of our case files that one of the employees in the Griggs County office has been working on up in Nelson County. And the reason that happens, if you guys remember or if you've ever been informed, we have a shared services agreement with Nelson County, so some of the employees that are trained to do certain things do them for both counties. And since the shared services agreement is from June to June every year, and we are supposed to have a joint board meeting prior to that anniversary date, I just asked the Griggs County Social Services people not to do anything right at this moment, other than to request that we have a joint board meeting, because it will adversely affect the taxpayers if Griggs County and Nelson County all of a sudden decide to go their different directions. And it could in fact ultimately affect the number of people that we employ in our social services. I don't know that, but I thought it was important before we move forward to get together with the Nelson County Welfare Board and just have everybody define what their intent is going forward, so that if we're not gonna do things together anymore, that we can plan for that eventuality. And I don't know that that's the case, but anyway, I thought I'd report on that just to get you guys up to speed. Sean and I kind of got a little bit of a update last week, but I'm sure you guys haven't heard anything about it.
No, okay, sounds good.
Okay. That's all I had, unless somebody has something. Tammy?
No,
Marcia?
Marcia has. May I, there might be a little bit of misinformation there. The memorandum of understanding or agreement is a ongoing agreement.
Yeah, I know that.
And only with a 30-day notification and so on and so
Yeah.
forth. And there are other factors why Nelson County is making a decision on only a small piece of that memorandum of agreement. Less than $6,000 if it totally changed in that small piece.
Yeah, that's fine. I just think the boards need to sit down together and define what our future roles will be.
Mm-hmm. I think the agreement's in effect till the 30th of June, is that correct?
No,
Unless
I think I read it the other day.
It's in perpetuity if it isn't interrupted.
Right.
But the anniversary date is June 30th, so,
Yeah.
I mean.
Right, I guess that's, yeah.
And the joint board has historically always taken place in June.
Yeah.
In January?
June.
June, okay. So we're pushing it a few days ahead of schedule. Okay. Anybody have any questions that I can't answer? Good. Auditor.
Yeah, standard deals, this is. This is our new employee, deputy, she'll be deputy auditor, Samantha, I'll let her say her last name.
Cost.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome aboard.
Then the next thing is, I did talk to Troy, our computer that was donated us from the state died.
Get what you pay for.
And it actually lasted longer, but you only use it twice every other year. So it lasted, and it would have been replaced anyway, or something would have, because it had Windows XP and they finally went to Windows 7. So it was I talked to Travis, and to update it's gonna cost $890. Normally it'll be lower than that, but you have to make sure that it's never been connected to the internet. So he has to actually wipe the hard drive, and so it cost me to have him do that. And that's why it's $890 for this computer. It is a used computer, but it won't be used that often. It just sits on the shelf until we use it. We get the card back from election day, it's plugged in there first, and then it goes online on a different computer. But it has to make sure that it has not ever been online, never been plugged into the internet. It has to be standalone. So it wouldn't matter if we took a computer from up here, it still would have had to been wiped.
Yeah.
And all the ones up here were older and would have still cost, what was it, just $10 less than buying the one. So you okayed it in the bills today, but just so you know, it was in there. And that's it for me.
Very good.
Meals.
Oh, election meals, sorry. We usually pay election meals, which is lunch and supper, on election day for the election workers. And I need a motion for you to okay that. And usually we limit it to a certain amount too, I can't remember.
Do state rate or something.
Can't have steak, sorry.
What was that?
No, it said state rate.
Oh, state rate. I suppose that's what, $8 and $10?
I think noon is 7.5 and supper is 10.5.
That'll work.
Is that a motion?
Sure, I'll move that we allow election meals at the rate of 7.5 for lunch and 10.5 for supper.
Is there a second?
I'd move to second.
Who are we feeding?
Are you
Election
eating? Darn, I gotta sneak down there. If you know the law on that, people aren't allowed to leave. And before, we used to have them pack their lunch. So they are not allowed to leave the building once they're there.
Can you trade sandwiches?
Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. John?
Aye.
Dale?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carries. Chairlift, you're back on the list.
I've had to call the last couple times. Wayne and Brian has come up. The chairlift has been quitting on us, so we need to have somebody come and look at it. And usually after so long, then we usually have somebody come and do maintenance with the problems, and it's pretty expensive, I think. Because they charge you for their drive time here from Fargo. And I don't know what, every time we move it, the obstruction light comes on. And then I can't get it to move. Brian comes up and he gets it to work. Why, I don't know. So, it's happened twice, so. I just need your permission, if it does get worse, to call them to come and fix it.
Can Brian fix it?
I don't think so. I know we've had Wayne work on it one time, but it's really not in there. And it's summertime, so if they're all graveling and stuff, there's no way.
Is it working now?
What?
Is it working now?
Well, I'll tell you what, every time the last 2 weeks, I ran it up, come down, and it stops at that bottom step. And I can't get it to move.
And the obstruction light comes on?
And the obstruction light comes on.
And then Brian comes and it works.
And Brian comes on and up here and then it works.
Brian comes and cleans the little electric eye just in the garage door
sensor.
and it goes. Let me look at it when I go back down there.
Okay. I don't know if you still want to make a motion, if you can't find it, to get somebody to come up and look at it or not, or,
I suppose we'll have to, yeah.
because it has to work.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd rather bring it up now and then have to wait later and call a special meeting.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we authorize it to be repaired if deemed necessary.
I'll second it.
Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. John?
Aye.
Dale? Aye. Ron? John?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carries. Premature hammering. Premature hammering.
Yeah.
You've missed the Bank of the West. Are you going to do anything with that?
Well, I crossed it off the list, but I went right by it. Nothing we can do with it.
So we're just gonna pay it, or what?
Can we
It's
move
good.
back over here?
Starting in June, right?
And it's good, it rents through the end of June. I mean, it raises in June, yeah. No.
1st of June on that, for
It
June.
it just says for the month of June. I think it doesn't really say when the June rent is due, I guess.
Usually you pay it when we meet right now.
Yeah, no, it said it here.
Effective the rent due for the month of June.
So are you gonna make a motion that we
What
pay
page
it?
is it? What page is it?
It's on page 48.
How's that? It says,
And another reason why I need to know is because then they want insurance information on it too.
They want what?
Insurance information. And don't ask me yet, I have to come and find out what exactly they need.
We just have content insurance, right? We're just.
Liability or whatever, it's already covered.
yeah, they didn't charge us the increased rate for the month of May, so this will be for the month, $16.50 for the month of June.
And that needs to get paid like they said today. Because by the time you meet in June, it's already too late. And it will come out of emergency
We're
or.
meeting on the 30th again.
Oh, are you?
Yeah.
Well, I thought we said we met on the first and third Fridays of every month, rather than every other Friday, but I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not positive on that, but I thought
Yeah.
that it was first and third Fridays.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm mixed up.
Okay.
Not unusual.
Okay.
That's Troy. Can you believe that came out of Troy?
Maybe this wasn't even meant for us, but it's meant for Sheriff Cook.
Got the R.
Well, I mean, we don't have much choice to, well.
We could move them back over to the old courthouse.
Yeah, I guess we don't have any idea whether this is, I suppose it'll be 6 months. That would be my estimate, maybe. If the DES grant gets figured out in 1 or 2 months construction.
Well, I think we might know something if Harold and the DES can tell us more within a month or two. I think we should just pay it. I don't think it's prudent for us to go through the expense of moving those people back here for a couple months if that's what it takes. I mean, we don't exactly know how long we're gonna be.
Yeah.
No,
In limbo.
I don't have that much argument left in me. Go through that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's sort of like if it
I'd
is
like
for.
you to get wore down.
That's just,
Yeah, I mean, if we really thought it was gonna be 6 months, that starts to think, then it starts.
Still
you
doesn't
start-
make sense.
Well,
to move 'em.
well,
We got the radio communications and all that.
There,
yeah,
yeah.
6
I mean,
months would be
hold on.
$10,000. Yeah, you're probably right, that
I mean-
to move them would be a lot, as much as 10,000, I don't know.
Yeah, because you have both state's attorney and shit.
So,
That's not outrageous rent for that much office space.
do we pay the utilities too then?
They didn't say anything.
no.
There's nothing in here about utilities.
So that's really good, then if they pay the heat and air conditioning.
Suck it up, Ron, make a motion.
Oh, gosh. I don't want to make a motion on that.
Maybe it won't make it onto the record. I'll make a motion, we continue paying or pay the $1,650 a month rent for the sheriff's and state's attorney's offices until a time that we have a definite idea of what's gonna happen here with the new courthouse.
Then move that we continue to rent the Bank of the West building, is there a second? Second new rental rate, I should add. Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. John?
Aye.
Dale?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Troy votes aye, motion carries.
There was your chance to make a stand. Wouldn't make any difference. Would look good on paper.
Keep paying it out of the emergency fund. Now you're talking more money than what was it for.
What was that?
Keep paying it out of the
Emergency fund?
Out of the emergency fund. I didn't realize it had to come. Is that where it has to come from? The
That's
emergency-
where it
It
was.
doesn't have to come from
Doesn't
there,
have to
that's
come
where
from
they
there.
set it up to come from.
Yeah.
Is there enough money in there to finish out the year?
Oh, yeah.
In the emergency, oh yeah.
It was refunded with $115,000.
Okay, I guess it doesn't matter where it comes from. We don't even know how much it's gonna end up to be. I guess that's fine. Superintendent of schools.
We should make the premise that if we pay rent long enough, we can end up owning the building, we can just.
There you go.
I would just say,
Yeah. Say it's a lease purchase deal.
Superintendent. What's a superintendent of school? Oh,
We were gonna look into that and then Troy didn't do that. I hope somebody did.
I didn't do anything on it.
I think we have to ask permission if we don't want to appoint someone. We can divvy up the jobs between the commission. I mean, I read the statute and come up with a plan and send it to the superintendent of schools, and the superintendent of schools can okay that plan. If you guys want to do that, that's what 15.11102 reads. And actually, the superintendent of schools, according to 15.11101, the state or the county was doing it incorrectly anyway because they had to have a bachelor degree from a regional or nationally accredited institution of higher education approved for teacher education.
I think there must be exceptions to that because I know there's a lot of auditors in the state that were appointed to superintendent schools. There's gotta be an exception to that. And that's been going on for years.
I don't read one, but there could be, but I don't know what the statute.
maybe everybody's doing it wrong.
That could be.
No, Nelson County was a former teacher, and she still retains her accreditation.
Ours was at one time.
So what's our options again?
Either to hire a person or to make a plan. We have to get a list from the State Board of Higher Education and of the duties and divvy up the duties to all the commissioners and come up with a plan and submit that plan to the State Board of Higher Education.
That's if you wanna get rid of it. Otherwise, we can just appoint somebody.
Don't look at me, I barely made it out of high school. So I don't qualify under the statute.
Can we call public instruction and?
Yeah.
You're up.
Can we table it again for
You're good.
next meeting?
I have a BS degree, but it's not in education.
It's up to you three, Dale and I are out.
Maybe the new deputy auditor should be appointed to that position.
Wow.
Oh,
Do you have a BS?
Bachelor of Science.
Oh, like Cindy said, there may be,
There's probably a waiver
doubt
for
There might
it.
be a way to.
Why don't you check, we've got 2 weeks, don't we? We have 2 weeks and can you check into it and see if we can get a waiver for that?
Cause I know there's a lot of them in the state where the counties
There's gotta be a way.
appoint someone else.
Yeah.
Or maybe we should talk to the superintendent of one of the schools and see if they'd do it. It can be one of the existing
Yeah,
superintendents
that may
also.
be an option too.
Oh,
Or point one.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I think you can appoint somebody that
That's-
doesn't work for you.
Real easily.
I move we table it until the next meeting.
Sean made a motion that this subject or issue be tabled until the next meeting. Is there a second to that motion?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Seconded by Ron. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. New courthouse? I think we
Beat that dog to death.
Well, there is some stuff here.
Okay.
Where is it?
Some emails starting on page 49.
Yeah, okay.
That's the grant extension. I guess we have not talked about that,
Yeah.
but that gives us a little bit of breathing room.
Yep.
The county's been granted a 1-year extension from FEMA, so now the end date is September 30th of 2015. So at least our back's not against the wall from a calendar standpoint, as it was. So it appears that Sonia and construction engineers is still going around and around on the schedule of values. And I didn't take the time since we got this to really get too in-depth into it. I don't know.
I see one, Ron and I see one glaring problem with it.
Okay.
If you go to page 53, and you notice the original schedule of values and the revised schedule of values both total $2.957 million, which
I did see that.
okay, so that is the guaranteed maximum price. Go up to line 72, which is a contingency. In the original, it was included in the original schedule of values, which means that they could use all the contingency money and still stay within the guaranteed maximum price.
Yeah.
In the new schedule of values, they dropped the revised schedule of values to $29,000 in the contingency. That's the money that's been spent already. The contingencies fund is still part of the contract, and then if you look over, that leaves $65,000 difference, and you read over farther, additional cost of the work to be taken from the contingency, which means that being they have the use of that contingency fund up to $2,000, they could run this thing over the guaranteed maximum price, $2,000 at a time, up to $65,000. Why he had to be sneaky and do it that way, I don't have any idea, but that's the basis of what happened here. The other thing is the $95,000 that they claim that he took off his 6.5%. Line 67, $92,000. He lowered his 6.5% costs. They just plowed it back into line items that construction engineers was being paid for anyway. So he didn't actually take $92,000 less money. They just put it back into the other line items that
Parts of the project that he completed.
Right. So in essence, what happens here is the new schedule of values, we didn't agree with the old schedule of values. The new schedule of values would raise the possibility of raising the guaranteed maximum price by $65,843. And if you did it $1,999 at a time, we couldn't say nothing about it. So whether that was in his intention or not, I don't know, but that's the implication of this. I think that's how I see it, isn't it?
Yeah, and I believe the architect is in agreement that on line item 72, that it should not be changed, so I think, and the contingencies really spelled out what it's for in the contract language, so I think it should remain as it is, and we don't make any modifications to it, because that's just an item that shouldn't be moved. It's kind of different from the other ones. I mean, some of the other ones maybe aren't guaranteed maximum prices, but that one really is. So
that's the way I see it.
Yeah, I think we should just tell them we want 72 to remain the same, and I think Sonia would back us completely. She wants it to. I believe she wants it to remain the same also.
Well, I remember John Lykoff in one of our commissioners meeting, he was jumping up and down telling us it didn't go over that cost.
Found a way.
Okay, existing courthouse, do we have anything to talk about on that?
No.
Have we found out anything about insurance?
Oh,
Can you give a report?
Yeah.
State Fire Tornado was not gonna cover us because they were in the middle of a lawsuit, but they have come back now and they are looking into it. On the liability, we are covered. Amber is supposed to get me a letter.
Now, this is the old courthouse.
And this is the new one.
This is the new courthouse.
State
So we're
fire-
on existing.
State fire and tornado will cover the structure.
They are looking into it. It depends on how the building authority was made. Okay?
The contract with the building authority or the?
You know, how they were,
Develop the.
Oh, how they were.
yeah, developed
incorporated?
or incorporated or whatever.
Okay, well, they'll know that, it's on the.
It goes back to the point that we were talking about with
Yeah.
Harold, the difference between the building authorities and this one shouldn't be called a building authority. It isn't a
not a
typical
public-
building
it's
authority.
not
It's
a public-
in name,
Not a
no,
public entity.
right.
Well, they will let us know.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
Any other questions on the insurance? Also, when I talked to Troy, he asked to get an amount from insurance forward if State Farm did not cover us.
Sure.
And she said she would look into it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Funding agreement, you need us to take action on this? Or didn't, I
That
thought we
is
already
supposed
did.
to be for the June 1st, that contract for that employee, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to do your letter first. She handed out this. Did everybody get it?
No.
Oh, they
That's the
didn't.
letters right there. You're supposed to-
Sorry.
Per my conversation with John, I wrote up a letter just stating that what we discussed about at the commissioner meeting.
I spoke with Rod Olson about this. I actually spoke with the clerk in Nelson County about this too. Griggs County is 0.48 time, Nelson County is 0.58, Steele County is 0.46 time. Nelson County gets like $3,500 a month reimbursement for the 0.58. What does Griggs County get?
$2.
26, wasn't it?
22 something.
2260.
And the reason it decreased too is because I don't make the same as what the former clerk and recorder made, or former clerk made.
That's based on salary.
2286.
So that's why that amount did go down.
Based on salary and benefits.
When I talked with Rod, I think this study is flawed, and I understand what John's saying. It doesn't take into account that, the study doesn't take into account any time that the clerk's been helping people out at the counter. I mean, I think if the state wants a clerk of court to be available, I think they should pay for it. I think John is exactly right, that if the clerk of court's office needs to be open full-time, or when the courthouse is open, then the time study shouldn't make a difference for a small office. It should be something that makes a difference for a bigger office. But for a staff or a small office where there's less than two people, or there's only one person, I think they should pay full time.
Well, it isn't even listed as part of the county in the Century Code anymore. It's under judicial services. Clerk of court isn't even listed in the county anymore. And Kelly states letter C in there, where unless the staff and we have to have somebody present at all times, but if you go down to F, it says if the county fails to fulfill the terms of the agreement, the state will provide for a clerk of district court services in the county in any matter it considers appropriate. Ultimately, if we sign this agreement, the state is obligated to take care of all of clerk of court services. It states that right in the Century Code. But
Well, and the reason I put that little paraphrase in there is just exactly what they say. They're saying that there has to be somebody provided at all working hours of the courthouse, and that makes it difficult if they're only stating that we need .48.
Have they responded?
I talked to Rod and he said talk to Sally, and it's just busy time of year. It's another gone, so. But like I said, per my conversation with John, this was a starting point, write a letter, expressing, our feelings.
yeah.
Yeah, this might be a process, not an event. I mean, dealing with this issue.
When you talked with the clerk of court in Nelson County, did they hire extra people then to fill in the gap?
Well, they've got there's a deputy and there's a clerk of court.
Mm-hmm.
The clerk and the clerk and the recorder's office are combined just as Graves County is, and they've got a separate deputy clerk and a separate deputy recorder.
Mm-hmm.
But I brought that up to the clerk, and she understood. She understood too what I was saying in the argument, and I don't know if anyone's ever thought about it before.
I think that was stated in our conversation too, Robin stated that nobody has questioned it. We're the first county to question it, express concern over it.
But it makes sense. I mean, if the office has to staff, if they require a staff office, it's a little bit different situation than if you were going to Stutsman County or Barnes County or Cass County.
They're big enough.
They have more than a one-person caseload, so it's a different situation than Graves County itself.
Some of them have their own court system too, don't they? Doesn't Cass just do their own court?
No, they're part of the state court system, but they're state employees. The bigger clerk of court's office, where there's more than one person, they're state employees instead of being county employees.
And I believe if you become a state employee, that's all you can do. You couldn't be recorder, clerk of court. I think if you're just one or that they don't allow you.
Good defined role then.
Mm-hmm. You can't have no.
They make reference in this funding agreement to 27.5.2-01, and it's the statement of intent of this Century Code reads, "It is the intent of the Legislative Assembly that adequate and proper judicial services, including clerk of district court services, be provided in each county in this state. It is also the intent of the Legislative Assembly that the funding for the clerk of court district court services be provided by the state judicial system within the limits of the legislative appropriations." It's pretty straightforward, and if you look under the county offices part of the Century Code, clerk of court isn't even listed anymore. They've taken it out of there. It's been moved out as of.
It's no longer a duty of the county.
That's right.
So we just have to wait and see what they say. They'll write a letter back to you. They're not just gonna respond to the phone call, Nate.
Well, I think you have to take some action towards, I don't know,
This-
if Jamie has to do, write a letter or.
That's to you. That's not to anybody but you, Troy.
Yeah, I would think something would have to be taken, some action by the board would have to be taken as far as communication with them or your disagreement with their agreement.
How come it's signed by Kelly Vincent?
That's the letter.
She wrote it to you.
I wrote to the board, yeah.
Oh,
I could have put commissioners,
When I saw you
And
on
a
the bottom,
chairman
I thought
on
you
the
wrote
side.
it to them.
No.
Yeah. And it was moved out of the county in 1999 is when this law was changed. When-
Yeah, that's when, well, probably even before that, when county judges.
Right. No, it was rescinded. It was rescinded from the Century Code in 1999. And I just think it's
Their obligation to provide
Yeah.
full-time.
There's an ambiguity in what they want, because they're only paying for half of what they want.
if it gets to a full-time employee, then they'll pay it. But I think they're giving the counties the latitude in order to utilize that employee somewhere else. The other half of it. But if it gets to a full-time employee, then we could have checked the box where they would have paid the salary and everything. And so, why are we treated differently than somebody that could have a full-time employee?
No, I think in this situation, a smaller county is losing end of it, because they're required to have a person there, but they're not paid for having that person there based on their calendar load. But they're still required to have that office open.
But we fulfill that by the fact that we combine the recorder and the clerk of court. So in essence, there's someone there to fulfill the obligation of having their during office hours anyway. It doesn't say that she has to work half time in the morning, and it could be split up. So we would fulfill the duties of having someone there, even having a half-time employee.
Well, and that's too why I wrote the letter, is with the workload between the two offices. To be a department head of two offices, it's a lot. There's no way I can fulfill 100% responsibility of the clerk of court if I am also the recorder. It's just not possible to fulfill 100% of both offices, or even 100% of one office when you're still the department head of another office.
Right. I guess the way I would look at it was if the clerk of court is justified at half-time position, then you would be the sole person for the clerk of court, and then you would need an assistant for the recorder side of it. Is the way I would interpret that.
Well, it's elected position as recorder clerk of court.
Mm-hmm. Well, no, the elected position is recorder.
No, it's
No,
recorder
it's
clerk of
combined.
court. It says on the ballot recorder clerk.
I know it does, but it can be an elected, excuse me, it can be an elected position when the state is providing it. There's combined into the same office, but the actual position of clerk of court is not an elected position, because the state, if we went over the threshold of one person, the state could bring their own clerk of court, and it wouldn't be elected. But anyway, it just makes sense that if it's a half-time position, it's a half-time position, they're paying for that, and we can have, that's why they combined it in the first place, and we're just overstaffed as far as I'm concerned, but that's my own opinion. If they say we need 1.5, we need 1.5, we're understaffed.
Well, and that's why I wrote the letters, because I don't feel that we could adequately provide services for both offices, and I can manage and maintain both offices if I lose a deputy.
But it's not our responsibility to provide the clerk of court services, it's the state's.
Well, and for our discussion, that's why I wrote the letter expressing my feelings on it, and, I guess it should go from there.
Well, I guess.
If my duties also include covering the recorder's office, then you don't have somebody maintaining the clerk of court's office full-time.
It doesn't say full-time, it's just there's someone need to be there during office hours. It doesn't say you have to be on the job working on the clerk of court full-time.
Well,
and your disagreement is not with us. Your disagreement is with your boss, which is the judicial branch of state government. That's who hires the clerk of court. They just happen to pay us the money to hire you. So your argument that they're not paying you enough is with them, not with us.
Well, I didn't have an argument to begin with. This was not my argument. This was something that came up when the contract came up. And per our conversation, you and I discussed this, and you said first step, write a letter explaining that I do not feel that those offices, neither one of them could be adequately staffed if we start cutting, or adequately provide the services if we start cutting staff. And it's supposed to move on from here.
Right.
Where it goes from there, I don't know, but I'm just telling you, you can't, it's just it wouldn't work.
Well, it's worked in the past. They were never staffed to this capacity in the past. There's
Cindy,
been,
you've been here for a long time.
you just bumped the recorder up to full time here 2 years ago.
The recorder?
The deputy recorder.
Well, I didn't do that. The reason, can I explain that? I was 4/5 deputy recorder. Barb Dramstead was 4/5 clerk of court. Jan was full-time. Barb retired. I moved over and started learning the deputy clerk's position. When Jan decided to retire, she then moved Lois to full-time because the times when Lois wasn't there, I was being pulled over from the clerk's office to the recorder's office, and she needed me there full-time to train. So when she started Lois, yes, she started her out as 3/5, quickly learned we need you at 4/5, then she moved from full-time. So that's why when you came last fall and asked where we could make cuts, I knew right away. I knew we've done it in the past with both deputies being 4/5, so that's why I made that cut.
When before that, it used to be a full-time in the clerk court's office. Lily Simonson was full-time. Melvin was half and half. He was half deputy recorder, half
Clerk recorder.
No, he had his own survey company.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the way it was.
So 2.5 basically, which is what we have right now.
Well, he covered either or.
Right.
So more or less, he was there full-time, whether he got paid full-time or not.
And that's what my point is, it's not the responsibility of the county to cover the clerk of court services. That is, if there's not enough people there, then the state has to cover that. It's not our responsibility. When we sign this contract, we're saying, no, we don't want the responsibility. You guys take care of it. And I can't help that they don't follow their own century code, but it's not, I don't think that citizens of Briggs County would be very happy that we're paying for a service that the state's supposed to be paying for. It's my own opinion, and nothing can happen now, but I mean, come budget time, that's gonna be my argument. So that's why I wanted you to go to the state now and try and get this straightened out so we have more funding for it, so that we don't have this issue come budget time. Because I don't intend to try and fix it. If the state says half time, I'm fine with that.
I'm just the clerk of court. You're the commissioners. You are the ones that sign the contract. I don't understand why it's up to me to contact the state. You asked me to do this. This was the first part of the step. I completed this. Also in the minutes, the state said Jamie would write a letter to them as well. So I don't know what else you...
In essence, you don't work for us. You work for the state judicial system. We had the option. We could have signed off on the option that we would provide the clerk of court services. We didn't do that. We checked the option that we want the state to provide those services.
We haven't checked it yet, have we?
No, no, we haven't checked it yet.
So, were you gonna write the district court?
I was gonna talk with Rod, and I did talk to Rod about it, and that was the answer I got. But if you guys want me to write to district court again, I'm sure we can talk.
It'd be nice if we had a written response.
Okay.
And it looks like you've done a little bit of homework as far as what our neighbors score on this evaluation.
I can email you guys that. I have the entire state.
Right. And you also know what their staffing levels are.
I have that. During budget time, I contacted every clerk and recorder in the state and found out what their... So I didn't just do clerk of court. At that time, I did clerk and recorder. So I have got that information somewhere too.
Is that percentage determined once a year?
I think it's every 2 years. They do an average of every 2 years. And
so it's not coming up anytime soon, in other words. difference?
Legislative.
I mean, it just went up 2 points from the last time that we did it.
Okay, but didn't you say once that it was kind of inaccurate, that .48 should be higher?
Oh, absolutely.
But
I mean,
there's-
that's what I stated in my letter.
Yeah.
It doesn't include the time that we spend in court. It doesn't include the time I'm on the phone. If you come in, it doesn't include emails. It doesn't include the time that I spend
So-
with learning and training. It doesn't
So-
include any of that.
So can we appeal the .48 and have you run over it again?
Well, I think when we had your conversation with Rod, I think he said the first process was write a letter of your disapproval of.
Okay, so.
And he clearly stated on that phone call too that it's not a perfect system, but they felt they had to do it somewhere, so they didn't say, so counties didn't just go hire, 5 full-time people or, but he'll quickly tell you it's just not a perfect.
But of
system,
all
but-
agencies to deal with where they don't have the rules set in stone, the judicial system, for Christ's sakes. I mean, what? So now we deal in ambiguity when we deal. But if you and I deal with the judicial system, it's set in stone. I mean, talk about a two-faced animal here.
So, first thing on the list of things to do, write a letter?
That's yeah.
I'll draft a letter for you guys.
Okay. And it would be nice if there was other examples where the counties were paying more than what the agreement said. Does this agreement need to be signed today?
No, because I thought if you signed it, you're signing that you are gonna do what they want, isn't it?
Yeah,
Well,
you
I
check
think,
the box.
a month ago or so, you signed a letter saying that you wanted to enter into a contract, and this is the actual contract.
Right.
Yeah. And you aren't doing it, right? Or you
I don't know.
We are gonna do it.
Are you?
Well, I think we should. I mean, if they won't change, we'll have to deal with that later, but we're gonna take the half-time person.
But then it's not gonna do any good for him to write a letter if you're gonna okay.
Well, yeah,
it,
because we're
is it?
still signing a contract for them to provide the court services. We're just requesting more.
Right. So Jamie's gonna write a letter. You guys wanna approve this agreement?
Yeah, but I don't think it's of any consequence. I don't care if every other county in the state's doing it wrong, or that doesn't no reason for us to do it wrong.
Well, no, and that's
No, but I was just trying to provide him with some ammunition to say, you know what you're doing isn't adequate.
well, and
And here's why.
It isn't right. And Nelson County is in that same position. They pay for a full-time clerk and recorder and a full-time deputy on both sides.
Right.
Right.
I mean, Nelson County is getting short of mistake too.
Yeah.
That was my point.
Yeah, they want to have the authority to have the clerk of court under their employee, but they don't want to pay for it. It's what it amounts to.
Exactly.
Yeah, don't like it.
So, and that probably only happens in the small counties because if they have over one FTE.
You check the box and the salary comes right from the.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay.
There's a way to do it.
What?
There's a remedy for it,
Get bigger.
Joint powers agreement with the county that has a half-time employee, and then when we have one, then they pay for the whole thing.
I hadn't thought of that.
Couldn't be with steel.
But be
Nelson.
Nelson, they're a different
Yeah,
district.
they're in a different district.
Oh.
Foster maybe.
Yeah. I mean, that's the remedy if they don't want to play ball, is to get it to where it requires more than one person for the entity, and then we just say, you guys pay for it, and then we don't have to deal with it.
It'd be hard for that person to be in both places every day. I mean, at some point we could make that argument, but they
Yeah.
don't want that to happen either.
No, we don't want it to happen, but
No, I mean, the judicial system doesn't want it to happen either.
I'd rather talk to one of the judges myself and see what Hobie has to say about it. They're pretty
Well,
level.
the presiding judge in this district is Judge Greenwood. I can talk with him about it too.
Yeah, tell them tell them we have a problem, and they're not providing enough funding for this, and we need it fixed.
I think he'd be more than willing to come talk to us.
Okay.
You can talk to him or start the initial?
Yeah, I go to the
I'm not gonna sign it unless these guys tell me to. This needs to be signed and back to the state by the 1st of June. So what are your wishes?
I feel like it's going to sign the contract and then try to pursue the additional funding.
Well, I think the county's better off getting 0.48 of a person instead of providing it herself, so I think it's a no-brainer to sign a contract, but pursue
Additional funding.
Accept the .48 and fight for more than that.
I don't see this as a leveraging point. It's a contract.
No.
Could we send a letter with the signed contract saying that we're signing it to preserve the integrity of the position, but we disagree with the funding provisions of it?
Absolutely, I don't know how far that's gonna get us, but.
No, but at least it goes on record then
Yeah.
that we're in opposition to it.
Would somebody will care to put that in the form of a motion?
I'll make a motion that we sign the clerk of court agreement with an accompanying letter stating that the .48 funding provision of it is not adequate to fully provide clerk of court services.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we enter into this agreement with the state to provide clerk of court services, along with an accompanying letter requesting adequate funding for the needs of that office. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. John?
Aye.
Dale?
Aye.
Ron?
Aye.
Sean?
Aye.
Troy votes aye. Motion carries.
Move we adjourn.
It's been moved that we adjourn. Is there a second to that motion?
I'd move to second.
Seconded by Dale. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Meeting of the Griggs County Commissioners is adjourned at 4:09 p.m. May 16th, 2014. Next meeting will be 1 o'clock on the 6th of June.
And you have equalization for
What's that?
equalization.
On June 6th?
Mm-hmm.
Then what do we do?
Well, hopefully Emily's got it all taken care of.
Okay.
So I think she's doing really good.
How's she doing? She feel good?
She's doing really good. She in fact had to do a mobile home report that I didn't know hadn't gotten in, so she's doing well.
Good.
As far as I know, she's feeling all right. She hasn't said much about her husband, so.
Okay. Alrighty. Thank you, everybody. Welcome to Money Farm.
Did you bring your triggers with you?
Yeah, that's the damn truth.
What?
Yeah, I said that's the truth.
I'd like to try to put this with you.